where it stops, no one knows. We're going head into the unknown. Na, 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 na.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Criminality. I would like to welcome friend Seagull. I would also like to introduce Andy Goosey and Miss Diener and Detective Investigator / retired Chief of Police of Delphi, Steve Mullen. We're here tonight to read you guys the transcript from the motion to dismiss where Baldwin, or Andy Goosey, will be direct examining Amber Holder, and then we have the lovely Diener who will be for the prosecutor.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mullen is our witness
for now.
Well, first we're gonna have a different witness, but can I get a witness? All right, let's put it up on screen.
Do you want me to start, or you want to say hi to people?
Oh, I guess I could say hi to people. I don't know. Would Fran say hi? Turn your cell phones off.
Fran would not say hi. Yes.
Turn your cell phones off. If your cell phones are ringing, I'm going to confiscate them.
And break them.
And break them. You will not get them back.
I could just see her collecting phones and smashing them with the gavel.
Order in the court. Well, hello to everybody. I'm not going to say hi individually, but hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are on part 2 of the transcripts from the motion to dismiss. And thank you guys for being here as we do this read through.
Tell me when to go.
Mr. Baldwin calls Amber Holder. The witness is sworn in.
Okay. State your name for the record, please.
Amber Holder.
How old are you, Amber?
I am 33.
Okay. What do you do for a living?
I'm a manager at Public Storage. I work 11 properties.
You work 11 properties doing what?
I clean the inside of the properties and the outside and help customers.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
Maybe a year and 3 months.
Okay. I'll get right to this. Have you ever talked to the police about the murders in Delphi?
Yes.
How many times?
Twice.
Okay. Let's talk about the first time you talked to the police. You remember where that happened?
Yes, at my grandmother's.
Okay. How long was that, the whole interview?
Maybe an hour.
What did you talk about?
Objection, Judge. I would ask that he establish the date of this to determine relevance to this motion.
Yeah. When was it?
When was it? When was it?
I'm not sure. I'm not good with dates.
Was it after the girls were murdered?
Yes.
They were investigating the murders?
Yes.
Okay.
I renew my objection. It still needs to be within 2017. Before the videos was missing.
She said videos.
Do you have the date that she was interviewed?
That's
I was
No, I'm not. I'm asking.
Yeah.
Counsel, when was she interviewed by?
I think it was 2018.
Okay, then again,
That would be after.
would counsel approach, please?
Already?
I'm sorry. I don't know how to make myself any clearer to you that you've made specific allegations in your pleading that you are held to. Calling witnesses up here that have been interviewed well past that date is not well founded and it's improper.
I respectfully disagree with you, Judge. I think we pled and then we plead and then we prove our pleadings through other evidence. The state in its charging information didn't include every single piece of information.
That's not what we're here to talk about, Mr. Baldwin. We're here to talk about your motion to dismiss for destroying exculpatory evidence, where you claim that a document dated February 17th of 2017 of Mr. Holder and February 19th of Mr. Westfall was destroyed. That's the very narrow focus of what it is that we're here for.
Yeah.
And if you don't have witnesses that are going to testify to these things, you're wasting everybody's time.
As Mr. McClellan argued in his response, Judge, that we have to prove that the state of Indiana or the law enforcement knew back in 2017 that there were material or exculpatory evidence or helpful evidence, and also that there was bad faith. And at the end of the road here, there is an argument to be made that back in 2017, based upon everything that you have heard, that the police knew that there was exculpatory evidence on there, and that.
And where is that evidence? That's what I keep asking you. Where is that specific evidence? Because she wasn't interviewed until 2018. So how did the police know that in 2017, when you claim they destroyed it?
Police are not ever going to say, I destroyed exculpatory evidence. It is just not going to happen. What is going to happen is other evidence comes out, like what's contained in the Franks memo, that shows that there's an ongoing hiding of evidence, not refusing to investigate things like that. And this is what they're trying to do. We're trying to do. If you expect that there's going to be a police officer that they're going to call or that I'm going to call that's going to say, I erased exculpatory evidence, that is never going to happen anywhere in the world.
I'm waiting. Judge, he has to show that it's exculpatory evidence based on what was known on that date or in that time frame before we have to show that it was not the result of bad faith. And if he shows it's exculpatory, bad faith doesn't even matter. If he can't show exculpatory and or in the potentially useful category, that we get to show that it was not as a result of bad faith. So his burden is to show that it is materially exculpatory. The video that's missing, that's his burden.
It's an impossible burden, Judge, because it's missing.
That is unfortunate, but
Then concede and shift to potentially useful.
that's what the case law says, Mr. Baldwin.
Well,
I can't change the case law.
Well, this is how we prove it, is by showing other evidences of police behavior, bad behavior, and then you can surmise as a judge, well, if all this happened then it could have happened back then.
I'm sorry. That's not what the case law indicates.
No, that is not what the case law says, sir. And if that's all you have, then we're done.
Then I will offer to prove.
No, then we're done if that's all you have.
I'm going to offer to prove, Judge, an offer of proof, and then we will be done.
We are done, sir.
For the record, they have a right to offer to prove so that the Court of Appeals can understand, what we're doing, and we will have no record unless I offer to prove, Judge.
Well, you can sum up your offer to prove, Mr. Baldwin, but again, if all the evidence that you have is after the dates that you allege, then your offer to prove is...
Thank you, Judge. If Amber Holder were allowed to testify, she would tell you that police, including Jerry Holman and the other people that were deposed by the defense counsel in August of 2023, have never talked to Amber Holder since August of 2023. She would testify that Brad Holder talked about the Delphi case, that Brad Holder told her that he and Patrick Westfall had a falling out over a ritual in the woods near a river because Patrick Westfall wanted to up the ante from animal sacrifices. If Amber Holder were allowed to testify, she would tell you that Patrick Westfall, according to Brad Holder, committed these crimes. He is protected by powerful people. She would also testify that she saw on Brad Holder's phone girls that he knew that he posed on the ground with sticks, and that she knows are runes from her own heathenism belief system, that were runes on these girls in the form of sticks, and that he had them on his phone, and there were multiple photos on his phone. And finally, that she would also testify that Brad Holder knew Abby Williams much better than he told the police. He told her that he met her several times. That is the end of my offer to prove in this witness. Thank you.
Miss Diener, do you have any questions for her? No, I'm going with my southern accent like I'm talking like Diener.
I have no questions for this witness.
You may step down, ma'am.
We have no other evidence, Judge.
The defense rests. All right, Miss Diener.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. I apologize. I wanted to ask for the court to take judicial notice of the Franks memo as it relates to this request to dismiss charges. That included Jerry Holman's deposition. I would also ask for the court to take judicial notice. Well, I was going to move to admit. Well, I think the Franks memo, taking judicial notice of that will be sufficient for what I need to do and argue. Thank you.
When did you file the Franks motion?
September 18th, 2023.
All right, I will take judicial notice of that specific Franks motion filed on September 18th of 2023.
And the exhibits contained in it, Judge, as also part of that. Oh, and the supplemental Franks, the second Franks motion as well. We'd ask for it and its exhibits as well. That was filed, I believe, October the 3rd, 2023.
So you don't wish for me to take judicial notice of the supplemental motion for Frank's hearing that you filed on October 2nd?
I do. I thought it was October the 3rd. It was October the 2nd.
Well, there was one filed October 2nd, and then there was one filed October 3rd.
And then there was one more recent, and I'll throw that in as well for you to take judicial notice of, the one filed a week or two ago. I don't remember the date for purposes of this argument.
And when did you file that one?
I don't have that at the tip of my tongue here, Judge. It was a week, probably 2 weeks ago.
I don't see one filed 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Give me a second. I just don't have it, but I know it was filed.
Well, I can't take judicial notice of something you can't tell me about. March 13th?
March 13th.
Well, I'll take judicial notice of the Franks motions filed September 18th, October 2nd, October 3rd of 2023, and March 13th of 2024.
Judge, does that include all the exhibits? Which I'm asking for judicial notice of all exhibits as well.
I don't see exhibits attached to the last one.
Yeah, I don't think there were on that one.
And I don't see exhibits from the ones in October either.
Then just the first one.
Miss Diener, you may proceed.
Thank you. The state would call Steve Mullen. Officer Mullen. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Officer
Go ahead.
Mullen, you've already been on the stand today, but I'm going to have you repeat some of that information, since this is a separate hearing for a separate purpose, okay?
Yes.
Please state your full name, spell your first and last name, and tell us where you're employed.
Stephen L. Mullen, StephenMullin. I am an investigator with the Carroll County Prosecutor's Office.
And when did you begin as prosecutor's investigator?
In January of 2020.
The investigation for Abby and Libby was well underway by that time, was it not?
Yes, it was.
What was your position in 2017 when the murders occurred?
I was chief of police in Delphi.
And I believe we covered this as well, but how many total years do you have in law enforcement?
42.
I believe you indicated you had been with the Delphi PD, then with the Carroll County Sheriff's Department as a detective, then back with the city as chief, and now with the prosecutor's office. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what is your role in the prosecutor's office with regard to the state?
I handle and manage the evidence, most of the evidence in the Richard Allen case, and process it and make sure the defense has it in discovery.
So you're cataloging it and keeping track of what's passed along to defense. Is that correct?
I am, yes.
Ring,
I'm sorry, Miss Diener. Whose phone is going off?
ring.
It almost sounds like it's in the next room.
Ring. I apologize, Your Honor. Oh, it is ringing.
Judge, there's a phone right here too. I don't know what that is.
It was turned off, but now it's on.
Is this yours also, Mr. Baldwin?
Yeah. Oh, I can grab that later. I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt your.
Are you familiar with the Brad Holder interview in 2017?
I am.
Is there only one?
That's correct.
May I approach Judge?
You may.
Mr. Mullen, I'd like to show you what is marked as State Exhibit 1. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and how would you describe it?
This is what's called an Orion document. In other words, it's a narrative of a report which Special Agent Adam Pohl created after his interview with Brad Holder. And that narrative was placed into the Orion FBI Orion RMS report system.
That is part of discovery, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And that interview was on what date?
It was done according to the report on February 17th of 2017.
And is Agent Hal with what agency?
Agent Pohl is a special agent with the FBI.
And he was assisting at that time
Yes.
with this investigation?
Yes, that's correct.
State would move to admit Exhibit 1.
No objection.
All right. Without objection, one is admitted.
You indicated that report is part of, is that Orion, and would be contained in discovery with regard to preparation for today's hearing. Are there other places that you know that particular narrative to be located within discovery?
Yes, that narrative would also be in the FBI general reports that were furnished to us in discovery.
And did you prepare records? Oh, Judge, may I go back to Exhibit 1? We would ask that be admitted under seal because it is discovery that has a protective order and it contains discovery information. I think that would be appropriate. It's the report
No objection.
of Brad Holder.
All right. I'll show it sealed then.
So, I'm sorry. You compared documents with regard to discovery on each disclosure of each disbursement to defense. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'd like to show you what's marked as State Exhibit 2. Excuse me. Just check all the pages. Make sure you recognize the entire document. Do you recognize that 19-page document?
Yes.
And how would you describe the contents of that exhibit?
This is an example of the itemized list of discovery which was given to the defense, and they were sign for the document, sign the document as having reviewed the items listed in each page.
So you use this to keep track of what you've given them and on what date it was provided. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Judge, may I leave a copy with him in order to?
Sure.
State would move to admit Exhibit 2 under seal.
No objection.
All right. Without objection, 2 is admitted and sealed.
Now, can you point to that document and provide to us information about when this narrative report of Special Agent Pohl from the February 17, 2017 interview of Brad Holder would have been provided?
That report should have been provided in the disbursement titled 04 Allen, dated as received by an agent from Mr. Rosie's office on February 13th, 2023.
And when you look at discovery disclosure, that's number 04. By looking at that, would a person unfamiliar with the evidence, drives, or how they're named know that this report is contained within the discovery disclosure?
The disclosure says that there was a 3.5-inch SATA internal hard drive containing the file 04 Allen with several files in a box containing hard drives. This also contained the FBI documents then. And we also maintained a copy of whatever was given to the defense and a quantification of the data that was given to them on site in a particular file that goes along with this document.
And so the report that you identified in Exhibit 1, you identified as an Orion report, and you believe it to be contained in disclosure number 4?
04.
Yes, 04, yes.
Yes.
And on that was on February the 13th of 23? That's
correct.
And then in preparation for today, did you also print out, I can't see it, screenshots that would show what is contained within discovery disclosure number 4 to be certain that the FBI reports, the Orion reports, and the state police reports were all contained therein?
I did.
Here's state's exhibit number 3. Can you identify that? It is 3 pages.
I can.
And can you describe it for the court?
This is a screenshot taken from the computer screen which displayed the files which were contained in this February 13th of 2023 dispersal of evidence. It shows the FBI files, Indiana State Police files, some search warrants, the 04 discovery receipt actually, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Excel documents which quantify the data contained on the hard drives.
And then on the subsequent pages, what does that provide for reference?
Thank you. The subsequent page, the next page, shows the Indiana State Police report, which at this time was redacted, and it shows 3 separate files. They received 3 separate files because the report in their system was too large for one particular case report. The next page shows the file which had the FBI general reports in it. And then the next is in Orion, the download of the Orion file dated 12/2/22.
Now, the interview by Agent Pohl of Brad Holder was subsequently discovered that the audio-video recording was no longer available. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you describe the circumstances and how you learned that it was no longer available?
Where would you like me to begin?
Start with a description of where the interview recording was kept.
At the beginning of the investigation, we started out at the Delphi Police Department, and at that time, as chief, I had just installed a new interview system. It was a DVR which we had put in because we didn't have anything sufficient in the county to be able to record interviews within the city of Delphi. So as we used the facility at the Delphi Police Department for the investigation process, it became natural for everyone to use the interview room at the city police department, which was located downstairs inside the police department. And as interviews were conducted, officer would go into the interview room, flip on the switch on the outside, illuminate a blue light to indicate the recording was operating, and when they concluded, they would shut the interview room, the recording off by turning the switch off. The DVR was located inside the squad room at the police department, and it was sitting on top of a filing cabinet. At that time, I was more or less obtaining the video off of the DVR for officers at their request, so they could attach it to their reports.
And you were not part of the lead agencies for this investigation, is that correct?
As chief of police, I was not part of the investigation, but I had become part of the unified command somehow.
Because of your position as chief of police in Delphi?
Yes.
And so the lead agencies would be whom, if you know?
Indiana State Police, Carroll County Sheriff's Department, and obviously the FBI.
Okay. And so tell us about the discovery of loss of video that includes the Brad Holder 20, February 17th, 2017 interview.
Around August of 2017, I went into the police department to recover a video off of the DVR, which I believe was unrelated to this particular case, and noted that the DVR was recording continuously. That meant that any video that was on the DVR prior to the date where it recorded up to was gone. It was no longer there, no longer recoverable. I, through my investigation, found that the last day of the interview was either the 19th or the 20th of February 2017. So, unfortunately, all of the interviews that had been conducted during that period of time and after the crime, homicide was discovered up to that date, were gone. Immediately, when I discovered that the recorder was recording continuously, I unplugged it and contacted the vendor, and we determined that the videos were gone and that somehow the settings had been changed in the DVR to only record when the switch was activated to record continuously, and we have no idea how it could have happened.
And you have consulted with the vendor about the particular issue to discern whether it was from a person versus just a spontaneous event like electricity going out or unplugging the equipment?
I have. I've talked to the vendor, and he has told me that on many occasions with the DVRs, which he uses or sells, that a power surge or unplugging the DVR could change the settings in the DVR so that it would record continuously.
So the murder of the girls is February 13th of 2017, or that's when they're reported missing, correct?
Yes.
And the investigation began as soon as the bodies were found. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And then your discovery would indicate that interviews conducted on that interview room with the DVR were missing from 2014 until 20th, but not including February the 20th?
I think there was some still available to be seen on the 20th.
Okay. There might be some missing, but some are there for the 20th?
Yes, and I would also add that some of the audio was missing even for the times where there was actually video visible. So there may be video that's visible, but the audio randomly sometimes is not available to be heard.
Okay. And did you or anyone that you know of intentionally leave the recording on so that it would delete interviews?
Absolutely not.
Do you consider this to be either human error or just a spontaneous event with the DVR recording?
That's the only explanation I can provide.
Now, during that time period, there was also a follow-up interview with Brad regarding Brad Holder. Is that correct? Follow-up interviews to finish the lead or tip investigation, is that right?
Can you be more specific in your question, please?
Sure. When Brad Holder was initially, interviewed, what was going on with the investigation during the first few days, where officers would be, like Special Agent Powell, would be sent to make contact with someone? Can you describe for us what's going on?
My recollection of the process was, as each day would happen, we would start with a meeting at the beginning of the day, and tips and leads would be assigned to officers to follow up on, or throughout the day, as officers became available, they would follow up on tips and leads as they had time to do so. If people walked into the city building as a way to provide information to officers in the investigation, someone on station would take that interview and talk to the person who was providing the information. If someone came to the Carroll County Sheriff's Department, they would either be instructed to come to the police department so they could talk with them there, or a phone number or contact information would be forwarded to someone in the command structure so that they could be followed up on as soon as possible.
And were instructions given on in the morning of these daily meetings about use of DVR if someone wished to use it?
Yes, they were instructed as to how to turn on the recorder and to be sure to turn it off afterwards.
And when you discovered that it had been continuously recording, did you look to see if someone had left that switch on, which would cause it to then continuously record?
Thank you.
Right.
I did, but I knew it wasn't on because the switch was located in a very conspicuous location in the hallway at the police department. If I were to walk in the police department through the door from the outside, I would immediately see the blue light on the interview room switch, and I would realize somebody left it on, and so it would be turned off. On that day, there was no light on.
Okay. And the actual hard drive in this DVR, how much data could it hold?
I believe it was, I think it was 6 terabytes. My report reflects the size.
It's quite a lot.
A lot.
Okay, so my question to you is, during this time period between when the first, well, let's go back to the way that leads were conveyed. So you have these meetings each day, officers come, you have this contact with them to give them instructions. Would it be fair to say that you have different officers pretty much every day depending on who's available?
It was quite fair to say there was different officers every day. There were officers who worked within the departments who were coming every day, but there were also officers that came outside of the Carroll County Sheriff's Department, Indiana State Police. There were officers from West Lafayette, Tippecanoe County Sheriff's Department, others.
In fact, Special Agent Adam Pohl and Hammond Police Sergeant Christopher Goot, I can't say that name, who appear on these reports, or is it Goody?
Right.
Are not local officers.
No, they are not local to our area.
And so in what capacity were they at these meetings or assisting?
Special Agent Pohl and Christopher Goody were there to assist us in the process of following up on tips, and they, like the others, would be there at the beginning of the day and receive instructions, or throughout the day, receive new instructions on who to go interview and to follow up on.
Can you give us a brief description of what a person in their capacity would be asked to do when following up on a lead or tip in order to be useful to the investigation?
They would seek out the information from either seek out the person they were needed to talk with, and then interview them concerning the information that was either provided about them or from them.
And then, if that person would there be anything about the person that might cause the officer to need to do more than just take an initial interview? For example, find out where they were on the day of February 13th or February the 14th.
Yes, the officers were asked to follow up on that completely or as much as possible to determine where they were at on February 13th, around the time we believe the homicides were to have occurred.
Okay. So that brings me back to Brad Holder. Before the video was lost or discovered lost in August of 2017, and after Special Agent Pohl did his interview on February the 17th of 2017, was there additional follow-up with regard to Brad Holder that you know exists because of your intimate knowledge of discovery and taking care of reports with regard to this case?
Yes, there is.
And do you recall what it is?
I'm sorry?
Do you recall what it is?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's marked as State Exhibit 4. I apologize. Can you identify that? There we go. Okay. Sorry. Can you identify that?
I can.
Okay. Can you describe that for us?
This is the report which was completed by Special Agent Rich Davies of the FBI. It details follow-up which was done and relayed to him by Grid Officer, which is a task force officer assigned to the FBI. Fred Rogers, where he followed up on Brad Holder's work history on the date of February the 13th, 2017.
Okay. And so what would be lead follow-up, correct?
Yes.
That would be.
Yes.
And did the content of that provide information as to Brad Holder's whereabouts during the particular day when the murders were believed to have occurred?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and so with regard to leads being assigned to officers, would this lead to a particular event with regard to lead follow-up with unified command? Does it put it in particular category? Is it considered completed for the time being?
Yes.
Okay. And so with regards to, okay.
It completed the investigation concerning Mr. Holder.
Unless something new became available.
Correct.
Okay, during the time period between when the first interview was taken and recorded and the date that you were made aware that the first recording is missing, are these the only interviews of Mr. Holder that occurred?
Yes.
And the second interview or the second report really isn't an interview of Mr. Holder. It's a follow-up about Mr. Holder. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So at the time that the video was lost, destroyed, whatever terminology one might want to use, was Brad Holder a key suspect in this case?
No.
The state would move for the admission of Exhibit 4 under seal.
Any objection?
No, I hadn't. Have you given it to me?
All right, I'll show 4 is admitted without objection and sealed.
What? Like, what even is that? Have you given it to me? Okay, I'm gonna admit it.
Oh, maybe she hands it to him at that point, and they don't write that.
Yeah,
down.
yeah, no objection, Judge. I'm sorry.
Judge, Did I admit Exhibit 3 that was the 3 pages of screenshots?
You did not offer it, no.
The state would move to admit Exhibit 3 with regard to the screenshots. It's a 3-page document.
No objection.
All right. I'll show 3 as admitted without objection.
Diener.
In fact, during the first 7 days of the investigation from February 13th until February the 20th, the period of time where the audio-video recordings are missing, was anybody considered a key suspect to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, no.
Do you have knowledge that Patrick Westfall was interviewed
Yes, I do.
in February of 2017?
Yes, I do.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 5. It has 2 pages. Can you identify that?
I can.
And what does that document contain?
This is a report that would have been found in the FBI general reports given to the defense in discovery, detailing an interview which took place on Sunday, February 19th, 2017, conducted by Special Agent Adam Pohl and Officer Goody with the Hammond Police Department, where they did an interview at Patrick Westfall's residence of Patrick Westfall.
Did my Walmart internet cut out?
No, I think Diener got a phone call.
Oh.
Okay. And is that particular document also contained within discovery as previously testified to?
Yes.
In the same location as documents with regard to Brad Holder?
Yes.
In FBI?
In the FBI general reports.
And in Orion?
And it is, I believe, it's in Orion. Yes.
State would move to admit Exhibit 5.
No objection.
Show 5 admitted without objection.
Before we keep going, Diener probably, since she got that call, she couldn't hear us. So she's got to join again. You'll need to drop her a
Yeah.
link.
Oh, do I? Okay, hold on. Okay, when Diener comes back, let me know.
I don't know where we were.
I think we're right here. There have been some questions raised about whether a video of Patrick Westfall exists or has been destroyed by the state. Do you have knowledge about that?
One never existed.
And what do you rely on for that information?
They went to Patrick Westfall's residence. Once it was uncommon for the FBI to record their interviews. 2, we talked with Special Agent Pohl, who told us he did not record the interview by any means and only memorialized it in his report.
And just to reiterate, even though you've already answered this in a general sense, was Patrick Westfall a key suspect in 2017?
No.
Did you make attempts to retrieve or somehow recreate lost video from the continuous play of the DVR?
First of all, I contacted the vendor and we discussed options for recovery. And then I presented the DVR DVD to the Indiana State Police to see if they could recover the video. It was never recovered.
It was never recovered?
Correct.
In the discovery disclosures, did you share with defense that the DVR for the time period of February 14th until the 20th had missing files? And if so, in what way?
From my memory, I believe that I informed the agent from Mr. Rosie's office that there were problems with some of the video and that they could try to recover whatever video they could. But they had, in essence, the same thing that we did. I did not document that in any way at the time of the release at that stage before they withdrew themselves from the case.
Okay. So on the discovery disclosure or transfer to defense that we referred to as the 0404, based on the number that's on the top, it's from February 13th of 2023 that contained these interviews in written form. But is that the same day or time when you would have transferred any audio recordings, or is it possibly on another day?
I'm sorry, Ms. Diener, can you rephrase the question?
Yeah. God dang it. The 04 disclosure that you talked about that contained these written reports from FBI and Orion from February of 2017, if there was video recordings that were also given, would they have been at that time, same time, or some other disclosure?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not doing my job over here. Okay.
I'm sorry. I can't remember exactly when I gave them what I gave them at this point. I'd have to look at my records to be able to refresh my memory. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a lot of information. And at some point, the defense specifically asked for video of Brad Holder. Is that correct?
Yes.
And was a detailed response provided through a discovery disclosure?
Yes.
I can't stop laughing. I don't even know where I am. Sorry.
Top of page 50 something. I don't know. The page got off.
Yeah, I think I'm in the right spot now. I totally screwed that up.
You're making me have a hot flash up in here. And indicated to them that there were lost recordings.
Yes.
And his was one of them.
Yes.
Was Brad Holder's the only recording that was lost?
Heavens. No.
Okay. And the recordings weren't just for this investigation, were they?
There were other investigations that were probably conducted during that period of time in that same interview room that were destroyed as well.
And do you have any way of recreating a list of all the interviews that happened during that time frame?
I do not.
And if officers did what was expected, which is write a narrative for the interview that was recorded, then where would that information be contained?
It would be contained within the reports and narratives that the officer memorialized their interviews in either the state police reports, the FBI reports, or perhaps in the Orion RMS system.
Or even other agencies?
Or
Beyond those, correct?
yes, other agencies, and that's true. There were other agencies that did memorialize reports that we have turned over.
But the court gave us a deadline of November 1st of 2023 to provide discovery. And did you do everything you could to provide everything to them that we had?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, what has been your directive from Prosecutor McLeland with regard to discovery and whether there should be decisions made about what we share and what we don't share?
To share everything that we have with them, even to a fault.
Which means every tip that came in through the FBI tip line, they've been provided.
Absolutely.
If we have a record of it, they have it.
Yes.
In the beginning, or when did you start your discovery transfers to the defense?
I believe December the 7th, 2022.
And that would have been shortly after their appointment, would it not?
Yes.
And has it been an ongoing since then, as reflected in your documents that you prepared that are in Exhibit 2?
Yes.
Now, there's some discovery that contains to be given to them. Is that correct?
Yes.
And some of the information is information you could not have had before November 1st of 2023. Would that be fair to say?
I'm sorry. I couldn't hear all the question.
That's okay. Some of the information you've given them, you could not have given to them before November 1st, 2023, because it didn't exist. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
For example, what would something like that be?
Recently, we recovered some interviews the state police had located on one of their devices that had been recovered because of an inquiry about an interview that had taken place, and that was furnished to us a few weeks ago, and we turned it over to the defense as soon as we got it in our hands.
And those interviews had actually been requested to be downloaded and attached to the state police records, was it not?
Yes, and there was a report accompanying those. That evidence that was turned over to the defense.
And specifically, the officer who located that for you and did a supplement report?
Yes, he did.
Can you provide his name?
Yes. Oh, his name is Matthew J. Harper.
Thank you. And then, aren't you also providing information that comes in from the DOC?
Yes.
And so that would be discovery that was not available before November the 1st?
Yes.
And just to be clear, before the protective order for discovery existed, were there challenges to discovery and the transfer that were then alleviated by the discovery protection order?
Monstrous problems.
And what were those problems?
The redaction of the data to remove criminal record information, social security numbers, phone numbers, anything that might identify persons' personal information which we had talked with or interviewed or followed up on in that 6 or 7 year period of time.
And so once that protective order for discovery was granted, you then felt comfortable duplicating discovery and providing it to the defense without redaction. Is that correct?
Yes, because we had the assurance that the information would not get out to the general public.
I'd pass the witness.
Mr. Baldwin.
So let me get this straight. You knew in August of 2017 that Brad Holder's video was missing. It had been taped over, right? Well, I'll strike that. You knew in August of 2017 that from February, what was it, the 14th, up until February 20th of 2017, that those no longer existed, those videos, right?
Yes, that's correct.
But then when you provided the defense with discovery in, let's say, I think it was, the first time was in December, you didn't say, hey, by the way, I need to tell you this. There's some missing video of people that were interviewed in the very early stages of this case. You didn't tell me that, did you? You didn't tell Mr. Rosie that, did you?
I didn't tell you, and I didn't tell Mr. Rosie that, but I believe I mentioned it to you or his agent. It's from memory, my memory. I didn't write it down. I didn't document it.
But it's not, okay. Well, did you tell Mr. McClellan that there was missing?
Oh, yes, he knew.
You did. Okay. So this is part of the packet that you just introduced into evidence. This is from August 22nd that you just introduced that into evidence. I don't know which number it is.
Okay.
So in August of 22nd, we got, you're involved in these letters that go to Mr. McClelland or come from him. I want you to look at the very bottom that I've highlighted, and that's one of the exhibits that's been introduced. I don't remember which particular exhibit it was.
Number 2.
Exhibit 2, page 11, exhibit 2.
Page 11, Exhibit 2. Yes.
Read the bottom of that, just to yourself, where I highlighted, just for ease. I'm going to ask you a question about that.
Yes.
May I have that?
Sure.
So in August of 2023, here's what you said about Brad Holder's video that we requested. Quote, you had previously received ISP reports that document those interviews and what was said in those interviews, though we did not locate any videos of these interviews. End quote. Right?
Correct.
What you didn't say was, that's because they were taped over. Did you? You didn't tell us that, did you?
I didn't include that information. No.
We did not learn about that this tape over business happened until February of 2024. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Then we asked for any reports that detailed the lost recordings. And we just got that evidence in the last couple of weeks, right?
Correct.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit E and ask you to identify that for me.
Thank you.
Tell me if you know about that.
Yes.
That is a document, a report that we requested about, hey, tell us about how did you memorialize the lost videotaped interviews, right? And that's what you gave us, Exhibit C.
Yes. Or it's E.
It's not dated though, is it?
It's E.
E, thank you.
Sorry.
This document that we just got in the last couple weeks, it's not dated, is it? There's no date on it.
There is no date on it.
Did you just produce this?
No.
You wrote this out way back in 2017?
Yes.
And we've just gotten it in 2024?
Yes.
After we had to request it, right?
Yes.
And that wasn't the only thing we got. I'm going to hand you what's going to be marked as Exhibit F because we wanted all reports about anything missing.
Sure.
Review that document, and then this was provided to us in the last couple weeks. Tell me when you're ready to talk about it.
Go ahead.
This says that Drive 2 containing the data of recordings made, this is in the third paragraph, made by the DVR includes interviews in room 1, 2, and 3, and 4 were missing from April the 28th, 2017 to June 30th, 2017, right? That's what it says? There's missing video for almost 2 months, right?
I'm not certain that was the final conclusion. I drafted this report after the incident had occurred, but in that that hard drive, there were errors associated with that DVR and the compromise of the data on it.
And
I explained in the report how that occurred.
you do. But the crux of it is from April 28th, 2017 to June 30th, 2017. There ain't no videos of any interviews, right?
I'd have to go back and review now to make sure, but I believe there may be interviews, but they may not have sound.
And this was the first time this document, Exhibit F, I think it is, was given to my partner, co-counsel, and I, was within the last couple weeks, and we had to ask for it, right?
Yes.
But we did get a narrative report of Brad Holder, right?
Yes.
About 6 paragraphs for Brad Holder. That's what his interview with police or law enforcement kind of came down to. Just a number of paragraphs, right?
Yes.
How long was this interview?
I don't know.
What did he say in his interview? Do you know?
I don't know.
What happened to his, when you discovered in August of 2017 that his videotaped interview had been taped over, what did he say when you followed up in September of 2017 to follow up to make sure that at least that's memorialized? What was lost was memorialized closer in time to 2017. What did he say?
I'm just not sure if I understand your question.
Did you interview back Brad Holder in August of 2017 after you found out that his video was missing, just to give a good accounting of what he said? Just another interview?
I didn't.
That'd have been a good idea, don't you think?
Objection. It wasn't his place to decide.
Sustained.
So I want to go through those 2 time frames. We've got February 14th through the 20th, 2017. That's not a single log. There's not a single log, is there, of who went in and was interviewed, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
The early stages of an investigation. You did an investigation at some point?
I talked to people and investigated leads.
Would you agree with me that early on in an investigation, that can be some of the most important time frame to receive information?
Yes.
You didn't go back and re-interview any of those people from the first few days, did you? Not just Brad Holder, but anybody whose video interview was lost.
I did not.
And nor did you try to recreate a log of, hey, I want to send a memo out to all the police officers who interviewed people. Please tell me who you remembered videotaping because there's 6 days of lost video. Did you do anything like that? Or
I didn't.
did law enforcement?
No.
No. Brad Holder was only interviewed in 2023 as a follow-up because our depositions that were focusing on him, would you agree?
Possibly.
There's no other reason you would have gone and deposed or interviewed Brad Holder then, right?
I did not interview Brad Holder.
You know he was interviewed?
I've heard, yes, I've heard he was interviewed and there's a report about it.
I mean, if you could get the recordings back, you would want them back. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
The second video time frame that we're talking about, April 28th through June 30th, there was an opportunity to unearth those lost videos with some type of Chinese equipment.
Software.
Software, right.
Did
you get the software?
I turned it over to the state police for them to follow up with.
Do you know whether they followed up with the Chinese software to unearth these?
I know that we were able to view the videos, but some do not have audio. So it may have been successful, but limited success.
Okay. So did all the videos get recovered then with this Chinese software?
I can't say whether all of them were recovered. We tried to see as many as possible.
Did you follow up once the Chinese software came into place and something seems, according to you, to have been recovered? Did you do a report on that and say, well, here's what's been recovered and here's, I think here's what that is and here's what we don't have recovered? Do you do anything like that? Because I don't see any report about the Chinese software working. Is there such a report somewhere that said the Chinese software worked?
I don't have it.
Okay. You did these other reports.
Mm-hmm.
Undated, right? You should have put the date on there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can we agree on that?
I'll do better.
Yeah, there were lots of tips. I mean, you're an investigator for the prosecutor's office. Early on, there were lots of tips about Brad Holder, right?
There was a few.
More than a few. More than a few. Would you agree?
A few.
And so what I understood on direct examination is that when people came in about a tip, then they were told, some of them at least, to go to the Delphi Police Department and get interviewed on video. Is that right?
Yes.
So some of these people that were, if there were people, these few tips that were related to Brad Holder, they would have theoretically gone into the interview room as well. Is that correct?
Likely. Yes.
And those would be lost.
Yes.
And because there's no log, you don't know who was interviewed or who was even interviewing, right?
Correct.
You should have a log. Would you agree?
Hindsight's 2020.
And the state was talking about, well, if they go, they were trained to look for specific information like alibis and then follow up on the alibis, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of a no-brainer, alibis. But would you agree with me that early on in the investigation, you don't know what's relevant or important related to things that could be found in the future?
True.
So it's nice that you can do an alibi, but what happens if a single sentence, would you agree that a single sentence in an interview taken in context with evidence in the future might make a big difference in the case?
Objection, speculation.
I'm asking him as an investigator.
Sustained.
Oh my God. You talked and referenced one of the state's exhibits regarding, I think I have it here, the Unclassified Federal Bureau of Investigation 413.17 follow up on Brad Holder's alibi, right?
Yes.
And that's entered into evidence. Here, I'll hand you this. I don't know what exhibit that is.
Thank you.
I believe it's 5.
Exhibit 5. It says, the Human Resources Director, Susan Case, said that the security camera at the scales may have picked up his vehicle. The video may have picked up the vehicle coming and going on that date, right? That's what it says.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes.
Did you get the video of this from the Human Resources Director? Is that a part of the discovery that we all have?
No.
Should have had that, right?
I didn't have it.
All that they had really was somebody. The Human Resources Director said that somebody clocked in with Brad Holder saying they were Brad Holder, right? That's all they said. Go ahead and read it.
I suppose they would have to work with his entire shift running his machine as well.
Did somebody go? Is it your understanding that somebody went and talked to Brad Holder's coworkers that day to say, hey, was Bradley Holder working beside you?
Objection, it's irrelevant.
Sustained.
I'll move on. I'm almost done. Did you check to see if Brad Holder switched vehicles with his oldest son that day? Has that been?
Again, objection.
I'll move on.
This officer did not complete the follow-up investigation.
Sustained.
Would you agree with me that if an officer failed to prepare his report before the video was erased and he was going to use the video to help supplement, as he wrote, that there may not even be a memorialized copy? Could that be a possibility?
It would be difficult if you're going to use that process because the video was gone. However, I should say that it was practice for a lot of officers to request the video be retrieved from the DVR before the erasal occurred.
Erasal. Okay, so that was common. Officers would come in and say, hey, I want to do a report. Can I see the video?
Yes.
Because there's things on a video that can be important to an officer. Gosh, I just found out this one thing over here. Let me see what was important over there on the video, right? That's maybe why they want to do that, right?
It's possible.
Yeah. You said that Brad Holder has he ever been a key suspect to this day in this case?
He was at work.
He was at work. So therefore, he has never been a key suspect, no matter what any other evidence that exists out there. He was at work.
That's what the report says.
Patrick Westfall, the same?
His interview would be contained in the report that Agent Pohl did.
Judge, I would object to the question anyway. We're here on a motion to dismiss for destruction of exculpatory evidence or potentially useful, and that was
No more questions.
specific to Brad Holder.
Sustained.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, Judge. No more questions.
Any redirect, Miss Diener?
Yes. Investigator Mullen, you prepared 2 documents that have been marked by defense as Exhibit E and F, which are the letters regarding the 2 different issues with DVR recordings. They do not contain dates, but they do have information at the top referencing Delphi case number and multiple others. Do you have those exhibits in front of you?
I do.
And so at the top, can you explain what's under investigative report for the court?
It is titled Delphi Police Department Investigative Report, and it shows the Delphi Police Department case number that we did for an assist in this investigation, and the Carroll County Sheriff's Department case number for the double homicide, and the state police's case number, and the FBI number associated with their case reporting system.
So when this discovery was made and you documented this information, did you share it with other law enforcement?
I did.
And can you tell from your memory or from these letters who you shared it with?
I certainly advised First Sergeant Holman immediately and Detective Liggett and Detective Kevin Hammond of the unfortunate events with the DVRs.
Okay. And they were part of Unified Command?
Yes.
And so they could pass that along to anyone that did an interview that might need to be redone or follow up that might be necessary based on the fact that those interviews were no longer available. Is this true?
That is true.
And you indicated that you gave information to an agent of defense counsel that certain data was missing when discovery was turned over. Could you expand on that? How did you identify that, and to whom would you have been speaking?
An agent of Mr. Rosie's office, and again, this is my memory. I didn't document it anywhere.
Did you mark the hard drives?
Most recent? Yes, I did. The most recent after they had been placed back on the case again, I marked them, each one as having no sound or
So,
no video.
or no video. So when they got discovery back after being removed and put back on this case, you were giving them discovery in January, and thereafter you marked the DVRs that had no video and no sound?
Yes, I did.
And when you say an agent of Mr. Rosie's office, are we talking about Sarah Luxembourg?
Yes.
And isn't it true that she picked up the evidence almost every single time?
Yes.
Okay. Did you feel you had a report with her where you could share that with her and it would get passed along to defense counsel?
Yes.
Okay. No other questions?
Mr. Baldwin?
There was lots of video that had blank on it, right? That you gave Sarah. Could you have been talking about that where you open it up and there's nothing on there?
I'm not sure how they appeared on the DVD or the hard drive. Excuse me. I believe only the videos that were left on the hard drive would actually appear, so you wouldn't be able to pull up something that was just blank.
I'm talking about empty files that were provided to us. There were things that you told Sarah Luxembourg, hey, you're going to open up some things and there are empty files in there. Isn't that right?
Perhaps at first, because we had, and each one of those showed in progress as we were putting more information into them, that might be in December of 22.
But we didn't know about the April 28th through the June 30th, those 2 time frames of missing video, until just in the last 2 weeks. You didn't tell Sarah Luxembourg about that, did you?
I'm sorry, Mr. Baldwin. I didn't hear all your question.
You know what? It's late. I'm going to shut up. No more questions.
Anything else, Miss Diener?
No.
You may step down, sir.
Thank you.
No other witnesses?
You may step down. Yeah. Do you wish to admit E and F? They have not been offered or admitted.
I do. I'm sorry, Judge. I do wish to admit E and F.
Any objection?
No.
Thank you.
Does the defendant have any additional evidence?
We don't, Judge. Thank you.
You wish to make any closing statements?
I'll waive, Judge.
Miss Diener?
Judge, I believe that our response filed with the court on February 22nd properly summarizes the issue and the case law, so I will waive.
All right. I will take the matter under advisement with all of the respective exhibits that have been admitted. And before you all leave, you have respectively filed, the state filed a motion for leave of court to subpoena third-party records to the Department of Correction. I've received no objection or motions to quash from the defense. The defense filed a notice of discovery indicating that Mr. Allen's medical records, part 1 and 2, had been provided to the state. So does that take care of your request for the medical records? Do you guys want to continue through this or no?
Yeah, we're about to be done. CJ, you want to be next?
You want to be Nick?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Let's see.
Switch it up. Switch up that character.
Oh, Lord. I don't know what else I got left in me. I'll give my best.
Oh,
Judge.
CJ, no, we're taking it all. We're taking it all. I'm sorry.
Judge, no, because I think defense and I had a conversation. We're concerned that the records that were provided to the defense may not be a complete set of records from the Department of Correction. I found it necessary that we want the complete set of medical and mental health records to address those issues at trial. And so that is the reason we subpoenaed the Department of Corrections, to make sure we get the complete record from Department of Corrections.
Okay. And the defendant filed a motion to compel and request for sanctions. That needs to be set for a hearing.
Judge, I amended that because after I filed it, I found an email from a few days before where Mr. McClellan had responded, and therefore I would I would ask the court to focus on the motion to amend, because in that motion to amend, I explained that, and then I focused on the things that weren't satisfactorily explained or provided.
So you want me to just rule on the amended pleading?
Correct. Not on the first motion to compel.
And the state, you filed your response to the original pleading March 18th. So if you want to supplement, you need to do that quickly.
Will do, Judge.
And then you also filed your third Franks notice and request for a Franks hearing. I'll have to review that and issue an order. Is there anything else? Oh, before we go, then I will grant the state's motion for leave of court to subpoena third-party records to the Department of Correction, both of the ones that have been filed. Who wants to be Rosie?
I will. Let me edit my name. Okay. Judge, I'm sorry. May I, Judge?
Yes.
I'd like to speak on that issue, if that's okay.
Sure.
Actually, I'm opposed to the court granting that at this point we're still within the 15-day notice period. And what's going on here is that I made a new request to the Department of Corrections after we were reinstated in this case. And they had just provided that to me. And there's nothing untimely about any of this, but it just happened, I want to say it was last week. Miss Gallagher from the DOC has been working with me to try to get that information. And so and when I received it, we were having difficulty essentially recovering that from the software program, which has been frankly, one of the challenges that we faced. You get discovery from one entity and it comes through Dropbox, and you get it from another entity and it comes through a Google account, and you get it from another entity and they've got their own software program. And so my staff member, up until I think this past Friday, was working with the DOC rep, Miss Bedwell, to try and get that information converted into a format that we could read. And I do believe Mr. McClelland's correct that I do think that there was information available to me that the DOC had about Mr. Allen, medical and psychiatric, when I made the first request that I didn't get, because now that I have kind of a refreshed request, I'm seeing additional stuff. So this is a long way of saying I would like a chance to review what I just received before I just agree to disclose it, because I don't know what it is. And it's quite voluminous, as you might imagine, with medical records. I know one of the files I think that we shared with Mr. McClelland was like 900 pages. So, I mean, in fairness, there were some blank pages mixed in there. But my request is the court allow me the 15 days or whatever time period is left to file my motion to quash. I really do believe that's probably not going to happen, because I'm trying to be transparent with Mr. McClelland. I already showed him the first 2 dumps I got, so I'd like some time to look at that before my...
The 15 days is up March 29th, so it needs to be filed on or before that date.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the state on anything that we've covered today?
No, Your Honor. I think that covers it.
Anything else from the defense?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are completed. And Jody, you can go off the record. Thank you very much.
Yay!
We made it, guys. We made it.
That second part was dumbfounding. Just absolutely stupid.
Yeah, I do not know. Well, 2 quick things. Yesterday when we were reading the first part, and I said how, like, in the military, sometimes, you'd get to work and they would kind of like tell you, okay, here's what we're going to be doing today. So it sounds like they did do that here in this investigation. I would love to know what they were doing. You know what I mean? Like, who were they going out on a Tuesday and saying, all right, let's go look at this guy? I'd love to know that. But how you could listen to what we just read through and take your feelings of Richard Allen out of it. How could you listen to what we just read through and say, yeah, I feel good about this investigation?
I want to know how there was a blazing blue light in the hallway, like a siren.
Yeah.
That you would know if
Every
it was
day.
on or off, and he never saw it on, but yet somehow they still got... I think he unplugged that shit, and when he did, that's when it all disappeared.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a good point. And where I worked at in the military, we had a light. Sounds like just what they're talking about, because I had recorded phone systems in my unit. And when I say this is a switch, like, it's not like your normal light switch. Like, it takes a little bit of oomph to get the switch up. The switch also had a cover, so you had to, lift the cover, flip the switch up. Those lights, I mean, I don't know.
We had
see the lights,
like a call light outside of your hospital room. Like, it's
Yeah, that's what I
like
was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to physically get up to go turn it off.
Yeah.
And he said it was blue, and he said that it was there because it was obvious that it was on, and that he never saw it on. So I'm missing where it was on for a large period of time to then record 6 terabytes. And and what so in order for it to start recording over, like I would be curious to know what started recording over. And also during that entire length of time, not a single police officer came and said, Chief Mullen, I need my interview on such and such a date because I'm writing out my narrative.
I'm dumbfounded. I mean, the command center that I worked in, our phone recording system messed up one time. Apparently everybody gets the stuff from China because that's who we went to as well. But we logged into that system. Every person who came on, we did 12-hour shifts. Every time that somebody came in for their shift, they signed into the phone recording system and they verified that the recordings from the last shift were able to be heard. So, I mean, it's dumbfounding. It's truly dumbfounding.
So I have a question about this because as we were reading through this, it kind of made me think, didn't they say that this DVR could hold 6 months worth of interviews?
6 terabytes worth of interviews.
Wasn't that 6 months, or where am I getting 6 months from then? Am I just making that up in my head?
Let me see real fast.
You just have to look up 6 terabytes of recording, how many hours that would be, and then divide that by how many hours you're in a day.
I thought at the beginning ones, I thought they said it was 6 months, but I don't have it in front of me to like go back and verify, because I'm like, wait a minute, 6 months is in August. It made more sense that they figured it out in September.
Yeah,
So
but it's
2,000 hours, 6 terabytes. It says, this is per Google, can hold 2,000 hours. So then what, do 2,000 divided by 24?
That's 83 days of continuous recording. But it was left on and continuously on doesn't make any sense because it deleted a bunch of stuff for a week. Then it recorded stuff. Then it quit recording again, like a month later.
Okay, I did the math on it. 6.5 months is 3 rooms of audio at 6 terabytes. I thought they said 6 months, but maybe I'm thinking 6 months because it was 6 months later or something. I'm going to go back and find it, because I was thinking if it was 6 months of recordings, they figured it out in 6 months. So did they just straight record through? They never turned it off then from the very beginning if it was 6 months.
Yeah, but then they wouldn't have those recorded interviews from like February 20th through April, whatever.
Right. I'm gonna have to go back and see what the context of the 6 months was. Yeah. They realized in August. Yeah. So they changed it. It was originally that they had realized it in September, and then they changed it to, oh wait, no. We actually figured it out in August.
Maybe I'm looking too much into this and it's getting late. So if this sounds dumb, please tell me. But when Mullin said that officers would sometimes like go back and play the video to help their recollection type of deal when they would write a narrative report. So nobody did that at all during this time to realize, whoopsie, it's not working. Am I looking too much into that?
No, if you're saying they do it often and then they went a whole ass like 6 months and not a single person for even a different case asked to see their recording.
Right.
No.
I mean, I guess everybody was like, yeah, I remember exactly what that person said. I mean, he's literally saying this is like common practice, but nobody did it for, this egregious amount of time.
Yeah, no. I'm not buying that. And also I have to say that Gull's sustained objections were even more absurd in the second part.
Yep.
Okay, so somebody else said something about the cameras on defense diaries. I did the math for 3 cameras running 24/7, and it takes 72 days to fill up a 6 terabyte drive. They reported 70 days of missing footage, so that maths, unless they did the same I did and lied about it. Well, it's weird because they're only missing like 7 days worth
Well,
of complete interviews, and then they're missing audio from like another 2 months worth.
I just feel like, and I also caught something that I hadn't caught before that Baldwin was getting at. And at one point he says, like, yeah, you would have deleted, say, Brad Holder's interview, but see, the defense is aware of what tips came in of Brad Holder, which would mean any tip that came in and any follow-up they did. So let's say that, I don't think it was Amber, but let's say Amber Holder calls in this tip or whatever, and they bring Amber in during that time frame. Her interview also is gone. So anybody that came in to have an interview about Brad Holder or Patrick Westfall, like, their interviews also are gone. It's not just Brad Holder's interview that's gone.
But how do
All
they
the-
not even know who they talked to? There's people that they could have talked to that we've never heard of.
There's no way.
Because if the videos are gone and the cop never wrote any type of supplemental report, which, I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't, but I'm just saying the without there being any type of log of who's going into this room and who's coming out of this room and what times they're coming in and what times they're leaving, we don't know who they interviewed and who they didn't put a supplemental report for.
The
There could be
police
somebody
department has
else out there.
the police department has cameras, right? Inside and outside.
I mean, you would think so, right?
You're probably recorded over.
So, like, I wonder if they can subpoena footage and just say that's like the only way that we're going to know who was brought in and when. Just try to identify these people off of CCTV footage.
Yep.
And he's just like,
make any
his answer,
sense.
I'll do better. Hindsight's 2020. I'll do better.
When?
Yeah, that was.
I would have asked, like, did you
You're about to
ever,
retire.
when you realized that all of this was deleted, did you change your standard operating procedure? Like, did you change that there should be a log? What did you do to fix the issue? What did you do to fix it? Or like Travis said, did they ask? And where was that? I had it up here a second ago. Like, he thinks the attorney should have asked more questions, like, who requested to watch videos later on? And if they were requesting to watch a video, who did they contact to arrange that? To see, like, who actually was messing with this system? Because they don't even know how it got deleted. They don't know. They don't know anything. It's like they never went back to try to figure out. They're just like, well, fuck it, whatever. No big deal. And well, it's not exculpatory, so it doesn't matter.
No, they said, damn, all that shit's deleted. Fuck, we can't tell nobody about this. Like, I won't tell if you don't tell. That's a major fuck up, big time. That's what happened.
And Golden said, like, we've likely interviewed you or someone close to you. Because they know. And this was like, I was saying that even when we just knew about the tip of Richard Allen that got misfiled or whatever you want to call it, or miscategorized, I was saying it then. And now it's like even more prevalent. No wonder they were saying this. We probably interviewed you. Tobe says that too in his interviews. So they knew that there was a big fuck up. They all knew it, and nobody wanted to tell the defense team. Nobody wanted to tell the defense team until the defense team asked for it.
2024, dude.
Yeah.
After like 7
funny.
discovery dumps.
It's funny that you say that, T, that, they say we've probably interviewed you.
Mm-hmm.
They hadn't interviewed Richard Allen at that point when they were saying that. But I just lost my train of thought completely. Yeah, I mean, they hadn't interviewed Richard Allen, and I just don't understand how this is allowed to happen. I mean, it's unexcusable. Let's say Richard Allen is the guy, okay? And I hope he is. Let's say that's how it pans out. These guys better go buy a Powerball ticket, because if this were a killer who did not go to the police and, basically say, hey, yeah, I was there. If it was like a serious serial killer type of deal, there's no way in hell they would have caught him. Not after all of this. There's no way.
Yeah. They couldn't go back and re-interview anyone. They don't know who it was.
If you go to Robert Ives's interview, he says that it could have been a potential serial killer, that he believed it was, and he didn't think they were. This is me paraphrasing it, so please understand that. But it was like he was probably the perpetrator was probably going to have to commit another crime in order for them to catch the person.
You know,
Yep.
yeah,
do
he did
remember
say
that.
that. If it had been buried better and they would not have seen that 6 paragraphs of Brad Holder's interview, the defense wouldn't even know that he was interviewed
Right.
at
No.
all.
Mm-mm.
And Patrick Westphal, like, yeah, they're acknowledging that FBI went to talk to him at his house, which is what he said. But what's important about that is that according to the narrative, it says that his, alibi was he was home with his son, Nick. Well, then when he did his interview with Sleuth Intuition, he said that as he was leaving the police department in August of 2023, where they, grilled him and they did a polygraph for 4 hours, and they asked him if he's ever arranged to kill anyone or ever killed anyone or put a knife to someone. As he was walking out, his son was walking in.
Mm-hmm.
And that supposedly the son said, they asked the son, like, where you were that day or whatever. And the son said that he was at school. Well, which is it? Was he at school or was he at home? Because if he was at school, then Patrick Westphal doesn't have an alibi either.
And if he was in Delphi, didn't he go to Delphi, or did he go to another school that didn't actually have a snow day that day, or a makeup
Right.
snow day?
Yeah. I mean, to see what's exculpatory and point out inconsistencies like you just did there with those interviews being lost, it's not possible. And it's interesting just reading through it and coming up with questions on the fly. It's like, okay, first he says, well, it could have been unplugged. And then he gives another reason why this happened. And then he calls it an erasal. And then he calls it a destruction. It's like, dude, which one is it? Because those are different. Those are different things. Which one was it?
And
Well,
Sadie, thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. The Westphal interview by FBI, did that officer say it wasn't normal for FBI to record their interviews? Yeah, so they had just gone to his house. But like I said, thank you for the super chat. But they just went to his house, and the FBI just made like a report that they went there and like did a follow-up. I also feel like that's part of the issue is they had so many different hands in the pot here, and then we don't even know what all the FBI even did. Like that's not even part of any narrative anymore, because it's like everything the FBI did is irrelevant now that they arrested Richard Allen.
So why though? Why did they suddenly go and interview Patrick Westphal 2 days after they interviewed Brad Holder, and that interview happens to be gone? And then we have Amber Holder saying all these things that Brad told her about Patrick. Did Brad go in that interview and start spouting at the mouth about Patrick? And so they went to follow up with him 2 days later, and all of a sudden the recording is gone. So now nobody knows what was said except for what's written in the narrative.
Right.
There has to be a reason they went to go check with Patrick Westphal.
Right. And it, you could say, okay, they went to Brad Holder because people tipped him in and he had a connection to one of the girls, right? Because his son was dating one of them. But you can't do that for Patrick Westphal. So we need the reason why they went to Westphal, because that is important
to us.
Well,
right.
The defense should be able to track that though. Like they should be able to see, like, what would be their reason for going, unless like his kid was in the same class as them, or he was at the bridge, or someone said that they saw him. Like, what would be the purpose of going there with no connection? Like, you can get to Brad Holder because there is a connection. But again, I think it would be interesting to know if what was said to Amber was also said to police in Brad's 2017 interview.
Interview. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's true that Patrick Westfall, has whatever he said, like important people or whatever that are like protecting him, then it would make sense to find out that he was snitching on him, and then all of a sudden the shit disappears. And Patrick's wasn't even recorded.
Right.
I don't mean for it to be a conspiracy, but I mean, this is either, it just seems like too much to be this stupidity. Like, it just seems like,
Well, why bring him back? Here's the thing. Why bring him back? You've cleared him. You're cleared. You're confident in the fact that you've cleared him. It's good. You have the alibi for Brad Holder. You've already interviewed Patrick Westfall. It's done. You've cleared these people. You've literally cleared them to the point where you don't even bother to listen to anything that Todd Click or anything like that, anybody that's in that group. You don't care because you've cleared them. You've confirmed their alibis. Why do you care to bring them back? Why wouldn't you just sit back and laugh at the defense and be like, okay, have at it. You guys are going to run into the same shit we did, and you're going to figure out they're all alibied. There was a reason we cleared all these people. Why did they care to bring them back?
And they swabbed Patrick, which didn't happen. And he also said that when they saw him in 2017, they didn't even ask about the girls. Like, they didn't ask any questions with regard to them being murdered.
Right. And it's interesting in that Sleuth Intuition interview. Sorry for the profanity, but I think Westfall's exact words are like, they were asking him off the wall shit. I think that's how he phrases it at that second interview, like crazy stuff. That's when they were asking about the can satanic ritual type stuff be compared to Asa True? I believe that's how he phrased it. And it's like, if there's truly no belief to any of this Odinism stuff or that an Odinist did it, then why does Patrick Westfall say that they asked him about it then? Why? So they were just wasting their time and jerking around? I mean, I don't understand that.
I'm going to pull up exactly what he said.
I brought up the Robert Ives statement about, he says, like, I'm no expert on serial killers, but I can tell you in the early days of this investigation, of course, law enforcement, the FBI, the Indiana State Police, Carroll County Sheriff's Office were looking for crimes in other locations that might have similar characteristics. But of course, the public doesn't know some of these similar characteristics. And even then, the characteristics they were looking for tended to be more general things than the items I'm talking about. And I'm not certain of the exact significance of these things, but they are very unusual.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
You know what he said? He said, they asked about Elvis Fields. Mind you, in his second interview, which hadn't happened yet, I asked about Dougie, he was put in the Frank's memo as like someone that they were equating to the mindset of Elvis Fields as someone that in the past they had used to, do things for them. And I asked about Dougie, and his whole face lit up. And he was like, yeah, I remember that guy or whatever. Like, so that was true. And so here in the first interview, he's talking about Elvis. And this is what he says. And I would like to know your thoughts. He says, they don't recruit. But then he says, I know this report says, oh, we go out and prey on handicapped people and these weak-minded, mongrels of society to do our biddings and shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and you could almost argue that it's right there in front of your face. Some of these things that he willingly just kind of spews out of his mouth, right? Just like when he talks about Loki and Loki being the trickster, he calls Loki the brother killer, the child killer. And then he willingly says, oh yeah, Johnny Messer reminds me of that. Like if you want to go that direction, depending on how you look at it, it is right there in front of your face.
let's say there was not a Richard Allen, that Richard Allen didn't exist in the world, and anybody started to hear all the things that they're hearing now. If Robert Ives or Liggett or Holman or McClellan himself or anybody came out and said all of this about the crime scene. There's no Richard Allen, mind you. Nobody knows that he exists yet. And yet you know all of this about the crime scene, and then you learn all of the information that was gone and deleted or missing from the investigation. Would people not be just fucking outraged?
I would hope.
It's mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. I'll go back to what I said last night. You had somebody who had intimate details of the crime scene. Why did they not go in Elvis's Field's trailer the moment that the sister passed the polygraph?
They didn't get a search warrant.
Yeah, and it just seems like, hey, we got more than enough, and it just like they didn't want to solve the crime. I mean, that's how it almost
didn't
seems.
go do it. They're like, here's all of the work you should have did. We're handing it to you now. Just go to a judge and write this all down on your own piece of paper and get a search warrant.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't be bothered to do that. But I found the spot that I was looking for, and he says, my first interviews were at the very beginning of the whole thing, back in 2017. Then they brought me back in the beginning of August, I do believe it was. Yes, the beginning of August. And that's when they started asking me all the crazy ass questions about how Asatru can be related to, is Asatru related to Satanism in any way? Is there any satanic rituals? And I'm like, fuck no, dude. I gave them a rundown and told them, shame on you guys. Whoever put that idea in your head, shame on them too. It ain't got shit to do with it. And Sleuth Intuition said, so were they trying to connect you to Richard Allen in some way? And Pat said, no, they never, after asking me if I knew him or ever had any interaction with him before, they never mentioned him again. Anytime during the interviews where it was just mouth to mouth, or even when I sat through 4.5 hour polygraph, they were asking a bunch of other questions during the polygraph. Did you ever stab anyone? Did you organize anything? Did you personally know, assist, give car rides to, organize? I mean, every damn question is in the world. I mean, like I said, everywhere from, did you personally take a knife and ever stab anybody? Did you organize anything? Do you know who did it? I mean, every single question I could think of, and for 4.5 hours.
You know what's funny? If it came out that Richard Allen somehow had ties to this Asatru or Odinism, everybody would say that proves it, he's the killer.
For sure.
But then if you say, well, Richard Allen doesn't have any ties to Odinism, people say, well, that doesn't prove anything. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know how more people aren't just mind boggled by all of it, and they just think it's so simple. So simple. They said Richard Allen did it, so Richard Allen did it. And that's just how it is. I'm like, okay, I guess if you say so. I don't know how you don't have any questions.
Can we talk about
all this stuff keeps happening and there's no questions?
Can we talk about the end of where he's cross-examining Mullen? And you can tell he's now just, because he kept saying, I'll withdraw. Like he was just trying to get certain things on the record.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
go back up to it.
Oh, here. He said, is it your understanding that somebody went and talked to Bradley Holder's coworkers that day to say, hey, was Bradley Holder working beside you? And then she objected and said it wasn't relevant. And of course, Gull agreed. And then he said, did you check to see if Brad Holder switched vehicles with his oldest son that day? And she objected again.
Mm-hmm. That is interesting.
And he knew she was going to, but he said it anyway to get it on the record.
Mm-hmm.
So now I got to know what the older son drove that day.
Well, I'm like wondering, does he think that the older son, like I was wondering where that line of questioning was going. Does he think the older son went to work that day? Or is that, I don't know. Is there something about the truck he was driving?
Yeah. If you
I-
you have to remember that by March the 1st of 2017,
Mhm.
Brad Holder had gotten a new vehicle. He got a
Mhm.
new phone. He missed several days of work and he moved. Okay. All by March the 1st.
Mhm.
Now I have to look. I have a folder here because I was trying to empty out. Like, thank God I screenshotted the shit of his Facebook page before he went and deleted it.
I
Which is
did too.
also sus. If he got an attorney, I find it hard to believe that an attorney wouldn't say, "Listen, everything that they talked about in that pleading, don't you dare remove it
Right.
because that looks way worse. Just leave it there."
When was it? Maybe this was a fever dream I had, and I'm making things up. But didn't we say last night that somebody else's phone only had like 4 days worth of stuff on it, or was that
Ah,
tonight that we said that?
That's Westfall's.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
In August of 2023, when they told him to come back in for another interview, they downloaded his phone and it only had 4 days worth of data.
Right.
But they went into that interview with the knowledge of whatever was said in their depositions.
Right. Yeah. So the guy who never gets rid of his vehicle, doesn't move, doesn't change his hair, you know, everything the same as far as we know. That's Richard Allen. And then you have, like Sleuthy just said, you have Holder, who basically like uprooted his life in a month after the murders.
Literally everything that FBI guy got up on that stage and told people to look out for was everything that he did.
Okay, so if we made a list of everything that they gave the public as clues of we've likely interviewed you or somebody close to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, they did interview Brad Holder, and they
And
also
Patrick
interviewed
Westphal.
people close to Brad Holder. They also interviewed Elvis Fields and Elvis Fields' sisters. They said, hey, somebody out here knows that this is their son, their father, their brother. They know who this is, and we just want you to, it just takes that one person to come forward. So then you have Elvis's sister who comes forward and is like, hey, I know who it is. And you have Taylor Hornaday, Johnny Messer's ex, who's like, hey, I know who was there. And you have Amber Holder, who's like, hey, my husband got in a fight with his best friend right around the same time doing some type of ritual shit down at the river. None of that matters, though. Like, all the things that they asked for and what you had just said, the last comment you had just made, another thing that they asked for or state is, the person's probably changed their appearance or, their hairstyle, or they've made significant changes in their life. Okay. Oh,
Or didn't show
like
up to work.
everything that you asked for and you don't,
Yep.
it's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Or withholding information from the public because only the killer or someone that was present would know about it.
Well, and did you see that on, I'm blanking on the name of his channel, the Joe Lewis channel?
Crime Night.
Crime Night.
Crime Night. He played from what I understand, a deleted interview with Robert Ives with Dr. Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to catch as much of it as I could before I had to go. But I've said it is my belief that we could have released more of the audio or the video. And it's like, well, then why didn't you? I mean,
He left. He retired in December of 2017 with two of the biggest homicides unsolved in his county, and he retired, and McClellan took over.
well, I mean, why wouldn't the next guy have done it? Or even in the Hannah Shakespeare documentary, Hannah Shakespeare asked Jerry Holman, she asked him directly, hey, the public is getting antsy about the fact that there's been such little released and there's been no movement. And, so would you release more? And Jerry Holman says, well, the family doesn't want us to. And then literally the very next question, he's like, well, yeah, the family does want us to release more, but we believe there's things on it that they shouldn't want the public to know.
Yeah.
And
If
so it's
my
like,
kid, I wouldn't.
yeah, if it were my kid, I wouldn't. But screw what the families actually want. I don't know.
Check your DM, Teresa.
Okay, well, so this is a transcript of that interview because, yeah, once again, another Robert Ives interview that is essentially scrubbed from the internet.
Oh, I need this transcript. I would much rather read.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I have that. I have that Brad Holder photo. That's his his pagan singles website.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like naked in the shower, like cupping his junk.
Like, what the fuck?
Weirdo, dude. Weird.
On Facebook.
So yeah, so this is just an article that was written up based on that interview, because, like I said, they scrubbed it. So we have the whole weird non-secular thing, which he says he never said, but was put in quotes and then retracted in an updated version of the one article. And then you have this one's like Dr. Oz, like the interview with him doesn't exist. And Dr. Oz also interviewed Susan Hendricks. I haven't been able to find that one either. Somebody asked who Robert Ives is. Just a quick recap. Robert Ives was the prosecutor of Carroll County. He was Nick McClelland before Nick McClelland was. So he was actually the head prosecutor in Carroll County at the time of the Flora fire and at the time of the Delphi murders. And he retired the same year, 2017.
You know why? Probably because he found out they deleted all these interviews.
And he was like, you guys fucked this shit up and I don't want nothing to do with it.
Yep. Like, he retired early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like to know if whoever did give it to Crime Night, if they have the one where Dr. Oz is also talking to Susan Hendricks from back then. I'd be curious about that. But yeah, so he said that this is, we can go through it if you want to. But then Travis had a question I wanted to touch on too. It says this is the trails not unknown, motivation when you have a murder in rural Indiana. This is Carroll County. The motive is obvious. This is 4 years after the crime, by the way, is this interview. So Dr. Oz says, without giving out the details that would compromise the investigation, would you say there's some unique physical aspects to the scene? And Ives says, as this 4-year anniversary has come up and some people have wanted to talk to me about it, it has made me think about something I've been concerned about. Besides the fact of the video and the audio, which is amazing evidence to have from a crime scene, as I've told people, if you arrived at this crime scene where the girls' bodies were found, there were 3 or 4 physical characteristics at the crime scene that you would absolutely take pictures of. Now, law enforcement has good reasons why they don't want to release information. I am not involved in the investigation in any way. I hope that people who are handling the investigation will consider whether perhaps it might be time to release some more of that information. So connections to other crimes in other places, or if someone's ever spoken to the perpetrator of this crime, perhaps it would give them a clue that they have learned something from the perpetrator. And then I already read the next one, so. Yeah. All right. So Travis was asking about DNA, like so that the state is requesting a DNA expert and a blood spatter expert. So does that mean they have DNA, usable DNA? Does that mean what does that mean to you guys? Right here. There it is.
Well, Hennessy said that, but in their pleadings, they didn't ask for that for the DNA person. They did ask for the pleading or the spatter and something else. Pattern, I guess they said. But let's say, for instance, see, the defense can't use the state lab. Like, they're not just going to go and say, hey, this whatever is not identified, like, run it again. You know what I mean? So if they wanted to, and that could have been a slip, if they wanted to hire a DNA expert to identify, like, we don't even know where Elvis's spit sample is at.
Well, we know they've said multiple times the crime scene was contaminated.
Yeah.
They've said that in their own mouths in their own interviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought it's interesting that they say it was contaminated. I'm pretty sure it's on Barbara McDonald's documentary where she talks to somebody who was involved in the investigation. They say, there were people peeing
Yeah.
and spitting.
Yep.
How I want to know how close in proximity was the urine or the spit that they found to the crime scene? Because if you're going to tell me that you were out there with a floodlight or a flashlight and you were 30 feet away from the bodies at whatever time and you didn't see them, I would just like to talk to that person. Hey, were you looking up towards the sky? Where were you looking at?
Well, regardless to that, I don't think that the crime scene investigators would be taking samples from 30 feet away.
That's fair. Yeah.
So, and my other question would be, is if they only had unusable DNA, why would they still be collecting DNA samples like in 2023 if they had nothing?
They have enough DNA to be able to exclude people and potentially include certain people. So you watched Murdoch, right? Remember the one of the DNA samples was actually matched partially to the landkeeper, the landscaper guy.
Yep.
And because of just the certain amount of markers that matched, but it wasn't enough to say it was or wasn't his. It was just enough markers that matched. So if they only have a partial, then they would be able to say, okay, hey, this person, you don't have any markers that match, you're out, done. You're out of here. But would they not need a DNA? Okay, so I'm not trying to play dumb here because I've watched a lot of trials and I'm trying to think of, would they not need a DNA expert to just go over what DNA was found? If there is DNA found in other locations or if there's DNA found on other things, like they say that Libby's DNA is on the tree.
Yes.
Wouldn't they just need the expert just for that? Or do they just not, they don't need that. They just need the lab tech to say it. They don't need an expert maybe. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Obviously they can just have a lab expert or a lab tech say, yeah, we tested it, came up to be Libby's, so on and so forth.
From what I've seen so far, I don't think that just the lab techs and the ballistics girl at the crime lab, I don't think those are the people that Nick's calling. Nick has gone above and beyond to get experts to then look at these reports. Instead of the people that ran the reports, they're bringing other people in to look at it and explain it. Like the ballistics person. He didn't do the ballistics. That other lady did.
Right. So it's more subjective to how you're interpreting it.
And it started subjective. You know what I mean? She wrote it in the report that it was a subjective analysis.
Right.
They wrote it in his probable cause affidavit.
I don't know.
And the blood spatter expert is interesting to me just because if anybody has looked at that F tree photo, I do not know how that's spatter.
I don't think it is.
I don't. The closest I've seen is potentially a hand, potentially, and that might be why they're bringing in a spatter expert, is to try to show yes, it absolutely could be. I don't know.
The only thing I would buy with that argument of it being something other than someone using their fingers or a tool or whatever to purposely do that. The only thing I could think of that I might buy from an expert would be, how they have they'll have a spatter expert talk about how if someone is, let's say someone is shot and the blood sprays towards someone that's standing there, and then there's on the wall, there's an outline of that person.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
I might buy that maybe that was the outline of somebody's hat or shoulder or something else that was in the way when that's the only way I'm buying that that's any type of spatter.
Yeah.
And that's a maybe.
I could go on board with that maybe as well. But you know what else is interesting to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but they didn't find a ton of blood at the area that the girls were located. Is that correct?
No. Well, no. Libby had it like all over her.
Well,
But
I
not,
mean, like on the ground, though.
no, that was at the F tree.
Oh, they say the terminology is very weird up until very recently. Like for all over the years, it was always, there was a lot of blood loss. So it made it seem like the scene was going to be very bloody. But what we're learning more now, if we go with what the defense is saying, it's like there was a lot of blood loss, but it's also not there.
Like it's
Like
lost.
like it's gone. Yeah. So I don't know. That's one of the things I'm really curious about.
Like the video interview's gone.
Well, and if you think, like, if you have a bloody part, right? Like whether the killer or one of the girls, let's just say, had a bloody hand, where was the blood initially on the hand? Because when you're exposing blood to the air, especially when it's like kind of cold outside, it dries pretty quick and it kind of gets sticky. And so if you took your hand down that tree in that pattern, would it have kind of left more of like a flake blood look because the blood had started to dry by the time you got to that tree? Or was the blood fresh at that scene and that's when it got put on there? But then if there's not blood on the ground at that particular scene, then it leads you to believe that they weren't killed there. That's just my opinion.
The way they made it sound was like that most of the blood loss was potentially over by where it would be the quote unquote F tree. And then they were moved from the F tree over to the tree that Libby's hand was up by.
Oh, I want to say about that. I've heard from everybody that's seen them, but again, they've, from what I understand, only seen like a very up close photo, to not really be able to tell about the surroundings. But when I was going back through the Frank's memo, it does make repeated references to specifically Libby being drugged to where she was.
Right.
So
which is another off thing, because it was rumored drag marks, rumored no drag marks. That's been an on and off like rumor for a very long time in this case.
Yeah, they say drug, and then they also say that the person that did it happened to not leave any footprints or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's another weird thing, because we were always told that there was footprints too. So I don't know. And then there was marks, some type of tire mark. When then Eric Williams comes and says that they're like ATV marks, which is tough because we know that people were out there searching on ATVs. Yeah. At least on the 14th. Did they go out there on the 13th also on ATVs? I don't know.
To be fair, if there were footprints that were identifiable, I think it would be really obvious if they were Richard. I mean, he only wears a 7.5, dude. That's like, I don't know that I've ever met a man in my life that wears a 7.5 shoe.
Yeah,
Boot.
I don't.
Not. I got nothing for you on that one.
Yeah, it's
a 7.5. Crazy. The fuck? I mean, I guess if you're only 5'4", like your feet don't have to be big, because like the bigger you are, the bigger your feet. Because not for that reason, but because
so like I got nothing on this.
Your body has to, like, the taller you are, the bigger your feet got to be, the longer they got to be in order to hold your body upright.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there was that many searchers out there and the crime scene is as contaminated as they say it is, I don't think footprints matter. No matter what, I don't think they're usable at all. I'm missing so much in the chat. I was trying to find this comment by Kim Riley, and I thought I knew where it was, and then of course I didn't. And so then I'm like, okay, I know it's here because I played it on a live like months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I swear I could find it really fast, and then of course I didn't.
You pulled it up really quick the last time I said it. You literally pulled it up right away.
thought I knew where it was. I have so much in my brain, though. It's like this shit gets overridden.
Yeah, I'm trying to do something else.
Maybe it's right here. This is the only spot I can even find him. Oh yeah, maybe it is right here. Okay, hold on. Hopefully there's sound, because I don't remember if I turned the sound on because we were just looking at a document.
County
Can you hear
Sheriff
it?
Tobe Lesenby. How long?
Yeah.
You can't?
Yeah,
Okay.
I really don't want to comment.
And the video evidence wasn't the only detail of the case that police were keeping sealed.
What about cause of death?
That's another piece of the bigger picture that we want to keep a hold of for now.
It seemed like police were keeping mum on nearly every aspect of the evidence they had collected, leaving some to wonder if they had much evidence at all.
Is it fair to say there is a lot of physical evidence in this case?
I'm going to say there's a lot of evidence. I know there was at least 4 different crime scene technicians working that, and they worked it for almost 4 full days.
So the lack of information given to the
that's not the part,
public
is
was
it?
a conscious choice by investigators.
No,
Okay,
But
never
we
mind.
can't do that.
he was
Jeff
standing by that oddly shaped tree in the woods.
It might be that guy. I might be
It's Kim
completely wrong.
Riley, but I thought he was in uniform when he
Right there,
said it.
right there.
No, this is Tobe.
No,
This
I
is
just
Tobe.
saw the tree. Right.
That's Tobe. No, it's
This,
Kim
right
Riley
here.
that
This
says
is where he
it.
says it. This is where he says it.
This
It's
is when
Tobe then
they
that
talk
says
about
it.
DNA.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
what
Kim
I'm
Riley
talking
who says it. This is Tobe.
At least 3 times that I know of.
No,
There's a personal issue that someone has against me,
What the heck?
or
no, he's talking about how he was tipped in.
Well, that's
and-
the tree that they are by.
Yeah, but it's Kim. It's 100% Kim Riley, no doubt about it.
Which part
And
are
I-
you trying to look for?
It's Kim Riley, and he says that
It's
the
urine.
crime scene,
It-
that there's tons of evidence at the crime scene because of the searchers were urinating
right.
and spitting and
Is Kim
There's a-
Riley the older guy that you
That-
just showed
right.
with the white hair?
yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah. So that's who I was talking about. Yeah, 100%. It's him who says it. I just can't remember where he says it at.
He says it at that
It's in-
weird tree. Right there.
Tobe again. No.
Oh.
Tobe. In this, Tobe talks about how there is DNA and fingerprints, though. He says
Play
there's
it.
both.
Maybe
Know
it
if
plays
those
off.
fingerprints belong to the
Here.
killer?
just ahead, despite the vastly different
Know if those fingerprints belong to the killer?
Yeah, that's next up. Okay, hold on.
Why is everybody standing around this weird tree?
You had on the tape than what's been released?
Right here.
Pulled from that video. I pressed Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lesenby to see if I could extract any more information about other key pieces of evidence that the police might be holding back.
Is there more audio from him on the tape than what's been released?
Not that I am aware of.
Could you release more of the video?
I think people anticipate that there's something, if you will, earth-shattering that's going to jump out at them. They go, hey, it's so-and-so.
That all of you guys watching it every couple of weeks haven't noticed yet?
Right.
I asked him about fingerprints.
There were some fingerprints collected.
Do you know if those fingerprints belong to the killer?
That I do not know.
And same with DNA. You have DNA.
Yes.
Do you have his DNA?
And we don't know.
How helpful has
What
that
the
video been?
Fuck?
Told you. Yeah, it's. No, that's not who I want. It's
also
Kim Riley. that
and I'm
says it.
wondering if this is like some type of hint, like, or maybe it's just my brain because now I know more. But like, what is with all these weird? Like, what is with them standing one on one side, one on the other of this weirdly shaped tree on the ground, and zooming in on all these sticks? Like, what is this? Look at this. All that space.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I'm just paranoid now. But also, he's super nonchalant. It's so bizarre.
Maybe it's in the other episode. Hold on. Maybe I'm just in the wrong one.
But those days are long gone. Barbara McDonald and Drew Iden are the hosts of the HLN podcast Down the Hill. And they've returned to Delphi because the mystery that grips this town consumes them. We know that Liberty German and her close friend Abigail Williams took a walk across on a
kind of went with it, and I was yelling her name so that she could hear me, and I hope
If you guys haven't watched this in a while, this is probably one of the best ones that's done that I think gives the most information. And then there's obviously those side interviews that were done, but I swear it was in this. Like, I feel like I should go back and like watch my own video of where I saw it at. And like, how do I not remember? I don't know. I don't know where it is. I don't remember where it is.
I know it's in there though. I know I heard that.
Well, I've played it, CJ. I don't even know where I played it from. And I even told myself at the time, I was like, I'm going to clip this and make it a short so that I don't ever lose it.
Yeah, I needed to get better at that.
Michael Catt's interview is different. So Michael Catt's interview but it's also with Riley. And he says that's when Michael Catt, who was a Delphi creator who's passed away, he got Riley to say that whoever it was did not have a criminal record. He did not say whether it was DNA or fingerprints, but he did say that the person did not have a criminal record.
Yeah, that was right in the beginning. He was,
Yeah, so we knew that they either ran it through APHIS or CODIS. It was one or the other. I'll find it. It's so irritating to me that I don't know where it is when I knew exactly where it was.
Now, would they be saying that the person doesn't have a criminal record because they're trying to match DNA up with people in the system and it's not matching? Okay.
Correct. Or fingerprints, because he doesn't clarify which one. And then when Tobe comes out, he says they have both.
Okay.
So, but he just doesn't know if they have the guys. Well, I mean, and like I said, because there's so much stuff around there, and like anybody who's been out there or on the property or anything that was washed up, because it's also a floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my problem in why I talk about this bullet is that it is a floodplain. So even if Richard Allen was not on that property, how long was that bullet there? Like somebody needs to like be able to prove that in court.
Right. Now, wasn't there a rumor that one of the individuals who was the first ones to find the girls, wasn't there a rumor that one of them checked the girl's pulse? Has that been debunked?
Not been debunked, no.
So maybe that's where one of the potential fingerprints could have come from. I'm just trying to think out loud. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible. We have no idea. And we also have heard that there was others like little odds and end things that were found around the crime scene. But that's why I'm saying, like, if it was just random ass stuff, who does it belong to? Is it relevant?
Right.
I can't believe I can't find this. I'm sorry, you guys. I really thought it frustrates the shit out of me when I think I know where something is and I can't find it. And like it's like stuck in my brain. Like I'm like, I have to find that now because I know where it is.
I just wish that I knew what the state's actual belief was, not what they're gonna push at the trial. I wish I knew what they actually believed happened. Right? Like, are they gonna go with, well, this is the lone wolf theory, because we've heard time and time again, more than one actor. So it's like, is this investigation still open? Like, what eluded them to more than one person doing this other than what we currently know? I would love to know that.
Well, then you go back to like when the defense is talking about their depositions and how one of them will say in their deposition that they think that there was one person and one person only. And then they talk to other police officers who said that when that same person's not at work, they don't say that. They say there's no way it was only one person. But here's the thing. They can think all they want that there's other people, and there could be. But like if nobody's doing anything, then it doesn't even matter. It's just like if she grants that motion to dismiss, or he goes to trial and he's found not guilty, do you really think that, like, what would everybody do if they then didn't continue investigating and start arresting folks? Like, I would, in my
Shut up,
head,
YouTube. Again.
My fault.
what the
Sorry.
heck?
Shut up.
It's I didn't mute the background. Sorry. I was trying to find a stupid thing and I hit another video on accident.
I was trying to figure out who that was. But
it's some channel. I don't even know.
like, I feel like if a jury, like, if I'm being reasonable, I feel like if a jury were to find him not guilty, I would be looking at them to start arresting these folks that are brought up in all this stuff. Because now I know about this evidence. Like, I just don't understand knowing about this evidence and doing nothing.
Wait, do you guys think the Kim Riley one, you think it's in Hannah Shakespeare's documentary? I don't remember her talking to Kim Riley.
Would she have went to the same spot? Why am I imagining that spot? Oh, you know what, Teresa? Maybe it is.
Is it really? Oh,
Didn't she
maybe
have
that's
like a long coat on? I'm picturing her with a long coat in that
Oh
same.
shit! No wonder I don't have it because he took it down.
Fig is gone. Let me see if I have a screen recording.
Yeah, I have one unavailable video on my playlist of all Delphi stuff that's hidden.
Oh, wait. So I was wrong. It wasn't with Barbara McDonald. It was with Hannah Shakespeare. That's when
I wondered if that's what my issue here is and why I'm thinking that I can't find it, because that's it's documentary style. Sleuth has it on his channel. Okay, let me go look really quick. Sleuth Intuition. Hannah Shakespeare. Does he have the whole thing on here? Does he have it in the playlist? Let's see. A video. Is it just a regular video that he has it up? I'm going back to see. I didn't know anybody else had it up. I know other people did the like the audio from beforehand, but I don't know. I'm looking. Somebody told me it's on the Nancy, okay. It is at 36. That's how long it is. Hold on. It's on the number 2 at 36:47. All right, I'll check there really quick and then I'll go back to look. $36.
Probably aren't as trusting. You know, we were rural, small town. It brought us into the bigger world.
And I've kind of just seen how bad of a world this is and how scary of a place it is to live.
It might not be the same time frame if you're looking at different
with what
videos.
happened to Abby and Libby, and on top of that, I try not to live my life in fear, but it's always the look around your shoulder and be aware of your surroundings.
It'll never be the same. I mean, if you Google search Delphi, that's the first thing that pops up. So that'll always be, Delphi will always be labeled with this. And whether we make good of it or bad of it defines who we are.
Abby and Libby would be seniors this year and getting ready to begin their lives as adults.
Graduation's going to be tough.
CJ, that could be you. That almost sounds like you.
No
Like that guy right there?
No,
No, the narrator guy, the guy that's
planning for
Trevor
college.
McDonald.
Then his motivation may be
Oh.
different.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, it could
innocence
be.
is a trap.
In two ways. They're normal in their behavior and they're normal in their lifestyle, meaning that they could have a good job, they could be married, they could have children, and in their everyday life, they appear as normal as you and me. They don't go home or back to work and behave in a real nervous way.
So that was an interesting part of the process. You don't normally sign in to something like that unless you're there for the president, but they definitely were taking everyone's name.
Once you were in the room, you know, there was an excitement.
Susan Hendricks was covering the event live for HLN.
We just don't know exactly what's going to be said here. Is this good news? Is this that they have someone in custody? I will tell you, Indiana State Police is guarding that easel behind me. So we're wondering if they're going to unveil something underneath that that's of significance.
People felt something big is about to happen, and people were hoping that it was going to be something positive.
Information's being released today is the result.
So people, and my husband's like, yeah, those are the people I hang out with, but why? I mean, none of us look like the sketch.
No.
None of us sound like any of these people.
Even the sheriff of Carroll County himself, Tobe Lesenby, has been called in on the anonymous tip line.
I've been mentioned as a suspect at least 3 times that I know of.
I thought he was.
Whether it's a personal
I did
issue
not
that
put them in
someone
though.
has against me, or I don't know, where those 3 separate times where that came from.
But the investigators, in doing their jobs, they came to me.
Is Libby's mom even in the
spelled
second
out exactly the way I have before.
I don't know. I'm gonna let.
Hey, who was that guy that you just went by?
Investigators need to
Wearing
release
the flannel, like the button-down flannel, the kind of older guy.
They can't
this
control
guy?
who might have seen them, who ran back into.
Yeah.
Their violent cases in there with the intent that local law enforcement would have the opportunity to recognize similar behavior from an offender, let's say across state lines or even across the country. And so when you talk about signatures, that tells me that this offender engaged in behavior that was noteworthy by the investigators, or by the crime scene investigators.
Let me see.
The former prosecutor of the
Okay.
case, Robert Ives, told us they existed.
He told us that, in his opinion, there are 2 or 3 signatures left by the killer at the crime scene. And you said you agree in part with that?
I feel like a necessity.
I asked Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lesenby,
said it was right
how
before that?
long is the recording?
Can you
I
comment?
really don't want to comment.
And the video evidence wasn't the only detail of the case that police were keeping sealed.
What about cause of death?
That's another piece of the bigger picture that we want to keep hold of for now.
It seemed
On the
Where?
tape than what's been released.
We already watched this.
Not that I am. It's not as long as what you would think. To say several minutes now.
I also wanted to see if the sheriff would agree that he felt there were so-called signatures left by the perpetrator at the crime scene. But before we go there, let's become familiar with what a signature is. Jeff Reinick is an expert.
When they talk about signatures as it relates to a crime, they're talking about behavior or actions on the part of the offender that might be unique to that offender. I think signatures are very important. The FBI has a database called the Violent Crime Apprehension Program, and it invites local law enforcement to enter their violent cases in there with the intent that local law enforcement would have the opportunity to recognize similar behavior from an offender, let's say across state lines or even across the country. And so when you talk about signatures, that tells me that this offender engaged in behavior that was noteworthy by the investigators or by the crime scene investigators.
The former prosecutor of the case, Robert Ives, told us they existed.
He told us that, in his opinion, there are 2 or 3 signatures left by the killer at the crime scene. And you said you agree in part with that?
Even some of my friends were getting turned in and they were saying, "Cause I promise this wasn't me. I didn't do this." Because
I thought for sure Carter was coming off that stage after somebody when he ended.
We will not stop.
He walked away from that podium like he owned it. And I thought, oh my gosh, Bridge guy was dumb enough to show up here. He's gonna go choke somebody out. That's actually what I thought. And everybody just gasped. It was pretty unreal.
But all that said, you know, after
I don't know.
all of that activity and that emotion,
Now I feel like I'm just wasting a bunch of time because I'm like irritated that I can't
In
find
the
it.
turbulent wake of the New Direction press conference, no arrest is made. But the people of Delphi are forced to wrap their heads around the brand new sketch.
Everybody's trying to figure any reason that this is now going to be a younger sketch. Was somebody else out there? Did they see something different?
I mean, all this together just felt like it completely was back to square one. It wasn't.
19, the public had at least a handful of leads that might help in identifying the killer. We had 2 sketches. We had 4 words. We had a very short video clip and the still images that could be pulled from that video. I pressed Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lesenby to see if I could extract any more information about other key pieces of evidence that the police.
It's not as long as what you would think, to say several minutes now.
I also
Yeah, it's
wanted
in
to
that damn Hannah
agree
Shakespeare
with
one.
the so-called
That's where it
signature
was.
left by
Well,
the
that's what they said
perpetrator
they
at the
saw it in
crime
this,
scene.
so-
But before we go there, let's become familiar with what a signature is.
Yeah, I just
Jeff Reinick is an expert.
I don't see
When
it
they
here.
talk about signatures as it relates to a crime, they're talking about
This one I feel
behavior
like I have
or
a better
actions
chance
on the
of
part of the
finding on my own
offender
video.
that might be.
Because I swear it was in the, my first instinct is it's in the Down the Hill podcast or documentary. That was my
Yeah.
first thought. I just don't see it, and I know I'm just wasting a ton of time because I'm just getting frustrated that I can't find it. I don't know. It seems they removed when Tobe said the crime scene had lots of spit and pee because it's definitely from the HLN. It wasn't Tobe though. It's Kim Riley. It's 1,000 bazillion % it's Kim Riley, and I swear it's in this documentary. But maybe it is in the other one, and I'm just confused. I don't know, but I will find it. I will find it, and I will clip it because now I'm just frustrated that I don't have. This is the only time I can find him.
There's a lot of evidence. I know there was at least 4 different crimes.
Leaving some to wonder if they had much evidence at all.
Is it fair
This
to
is not
say
what he
there
said
is
this
a lot of physical evidence in this case?
I'm going to say there's a lot of evidence. I know there was at least 4 different crime scene technicians working that, and they worked it for almost 4 full days.
So the lack of information given to the public was a conscious choice by investigators. But why would they do that? Jeff Reinick, former FBI special.
He said, but in the clip he says that it was contaminated from all the searchers. There was piss and spit and
That guy right there that was just on the screen.
yeah.
That's who I thought. That's who I thought said it in the.
That is who said it.
Yeah. So
That is absolutely who said it. It's him that says it. I just don't know where that.
I'm gonna go back and get on Amazon because I bought this off of Amazon and it's like each part's like an hour or something like that. I feel like.
Yeah, I have it with no commercials, so it's
okay.
From
I got you.
It's
that is
like Dark Reality, I think, is the channel that I play it from because they took it and just took out all the commercials. So it's like 39 minutes and 47 seconds for each episode.
Okay.
But maybe it is the Hannah Shakespeare one, and I'm just losing it. But Nancy's saying it's police spokesperson. It's Barbara McDonald interviewing in police spokesperson right after Tobe Lesenby interview. It's literally a 10-second clip, but this is the one of him that is like a 10-second clip, but this is not when he says it.
Right.
So I said at this point I feel like I have a better chance of finding it on my own video that I played it on. I sent a link because I think it's on a minivan trailer video. Will IMDb tell me what timestamp he's on it though? Because that's what I need. I need the timestamp, and plus there's 2 of them, so it makes it more complicated. In the second
pastor
one?
found me and asked if anybody had just
I'm
talked
not
to
gonna
me.
be
And
able
I
to let
said
it
no,
go.
so we need to go
I just have
upstairs.
to end this. Like,
And my heart just dropped.
So irritated.
And then my girlfriends and coworkers were all just standing visiting. And I said, we found him. And she's like, oh, thank God. And I said, no.
There's part 1 and part 2.
It's all just a blur after that.
I'm sorry, you guys.
And I was hysterical.
I just get weird. Like I can't let it go.
I was like primal evil just came out of me and screaming no. And I said, are they alive? And he said no. I was just hysterical. People were staring at me. And I just wanted to disappear. I wanted it to all go away. I'd pulled up on the wrong side of the gas pump. Here I was outside of the pump screaming, and why can't I get the nozzle in the thing? Because it wasn't even there.
At that moment, I wanted to run across the creek and get to them. I was like, they're alive. I know they are. They have to be. And I knew that they weren't.
AT, it's 2625. 2625.
On part 1 or 2?
Part 1, timestamp 2625.
I calmed down.
So you know, we had to deal with that.
The crime scene encompassed a very large area, and its integrity had been violated by the pure magnitude of the search to find the missing girls.
Oh, thank God.
Tracks, cigarette butts, believe it or not, this kind of disgusting, but you had spit. People would urinate. I mean, because they don't have time to go back, so they go hide in the woods to go to the bathroom, that kind of stuff. So we had to deal with all that. And most people don't even think of things like that. But I mean, it was just that dramatic of a crime scene.
Early in the investigation.
He's not on the damn screen. He's not on the damn screen. So here I am just going over it and over it and over it. Like, okay, where the hell is he? He's not on the damn screen. Gosh darn it. Thank you.
We just did more investigative work than the Carroll County Sheriff's Department.
Son of a bitch. I'm like, it's all deleted. Just delete everything. Just delete everything. Oh, 1960, thank you. Thank you for my travel fund.
Night before. So you know, we had to deal with that.
The crime scene encompassed a very large area, and its integrity had been violated by the pure magnitude of the search to find the missing girls.
A lot of tracks, cigarette butts, believe it or not, this kind of disgusting, but you had spit. People would urinate. I mean, because they don't have time to go back, so they go hide in the woods to go to the bathroom, that kind of stuff. So we had to deal with all that. And most people don't even think of things like that. But I mean, it was just that dramatic of a crime scene.
Early in the investigation.
Most people don't even think of things like that. But yet Elvis Fields, he's like, hey, if I spit on the girls, is that okay? If I can explain it?
Right.
But most people don't think of that. And yet he's here saying there was cigarette butts and urine and spit. Just an ironic thing that, you know, from a 2019, this is 2020, I believe, is when Down the Hill came out. 19 or 20. But long before Frank's memo, long before we knew anything about spit, and he knows about spit, or he should. He's part of the Unified Command, right?
Yep, you would think so.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, CJ.
I googled Kim Riley urine, and I'm going to tell you right now that is not what came up on my phone.
Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Good thing you weren't sharing your screen. Oh, I was urinate. Oh, yeah. Well, that's okay, because I was scrolling through here just trying to find Kim Riley, and I'm like, I swear he's in here. I swear it's him. Oh, that was frustrating. Okay, now we know where it is. I'm going to clip it, make it short. Goodness gracious. All right. Any other final thoughts? I know Sleuthy left to go find that. Any other final thoughts, CJ? I thank you all three of you guys. And Carla, I don't think it's in here. I don't know if she's in here anymore. But Andy Goosey, Steve Mullen / Nick McClellan / Amber Holder. We could not have done it without you. And I know that you're like, my voice is done. Like, I'm done with the talking for the night.
Thank you for letting me come on. I think just to end things for me, I remember Bob saying, I could have sworn he said in the chat that the state can't establish a time of death. And if I was a juror on this case and I'm supposed to put so much weight into Richard Allen putting himself on the trail from 1:30 to 3:30, if you can't prove to me that the girls were murdered during that time frame, I would have trouble getting to a guilty verdict with what we know right now.
Yeah, I don't know why they should be able to at least narrow it down. And if we believe David Erskine's beginning text, and he says that Becky Patty does have a death certificate, and the person's like, well, she says she doesn't, and David Erskine's like, well, then she's lying to you. You know, do they have? And he says that they say everything was over by 3:30. So if we go by that, then everything is over by 3:30. If you know, then he turns around and says that he didn't send some of those messages that were sent, then does he even say that?
Well, one other interesting thing too is with in a Snae's video that where he got a question asked to him, or a comment made to him that they believe that David Hennessy is going to bring up these 3 phones and say the 3 phones aren't necessarily somebody who was involved in the murder, but they were people who were close enough that would have heard something. So that's this person's take. But Elvis Fields mentioned it was him and 2 others. 2 and 1 is 3. There were 3 phones around the crime scene. I don't know, just to think that this went down in broad daylight, no screams, nobody saw anything. It's hard to wrap your mind around. It just is. And that's why I think people are asking for more before they're willing to get to the point of where they're like, okay, I'm sold. Richard Allen is the guy.
Right. If you just give me a couple more pieces of info, I'm all in. Like that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. But unfortunately, when we read through that document tonight, it pushes you farther away from Richard Allen, in my opinion. We're not getting anything showing us he's the killer. We're asking for more information showing us that, right? But instead, we're getting more information of what the hell were you guys doing, and why didn't you look at these other guys? And to me, that's not good for the state. That's not good.
Well,
I'm a hop off, Keith. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, CJ. Thank you. Hold on, I want to drop your link really quick. You are 63 people. Anybody in chat? He's like 62 people away from 1,000. So if you're not subscribed to CJ and you want to listen to Delphi with a side of comedy and CJ falling out of his chair every once in a while, make sure you guys are subscribed over there. It's Case Closed with CJ. It's true crime with a bit of humor. So if that's what you're into, he's only 62 people away. 62 people from 1,000. So you are here. Make sure you guys sub up to him. What were we saying? I don't even know what I was saying anymore. I'm like, oh gosh. Yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. Make sure you guys subscribe to him. I think I was in the middle of a thought, but now I don't remember what it was. So dun. Yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. Anybody here watching listening to Chad Daybell today? Jury selection? Travis. Anybody chat? Any Chad Daybellers? Crystal Lynn, you went and found it on my own channel. Thank you. A look back at the investigators. I think I even say in that damn video, I'm going to clip this. Yeah, we need to do a recap on Idaho. Oh, they're doing a recap on East Idaho? Oh, okay. Daybell, yes. Chad Daybell. Jury selection, day 1. Today. All right, let me see. All right, now he needs 58 more. Okay, so Daybell is still in jury selection. East Idaho News did a recap on it apparently, which doesn't surprise me. Nate Eaton, East Idaho News, he does amazing. I can grab that too in case you guys aren't subbed up over there. Which I think anybody who followed Lori, or actually, even just when the kids were missing, East Idaho News. For anything that has to do with Daybell, Vallow, I typically follow Nate and Justin Lum. So Justin Lum covers a lot of the Arizona parts of the crime, and Nate Eaton covers the Idaho parts, and then they collab when there's the crossover. So, but that is East Idaho News. So that's where we're at. That I think it's gonna be more of a slam dunk. I don't think we're gonna have too much of an issue with getting a conviction in that case. That's my opinion. He had Lori's attorney on there tonight. Did he really? Oh, I'm gonna go watch that. Hold on, I missed what you said. What did you say, D.B. Cooper? I'm gonna go sub to CJ right now. Yeah, I'll watch that. So listen to all of LVD on HTC. Every night, 6:30 Idaho time. What's the shit about peeps thinking Koberger is not the right guy? Snappy Dragon, I don't know. I know that there is, and this is why I always say too is like to make sure we give grace, because there is a group of people who are very upset on social media that we question whether Richard Allen is the right guy or not. I'm not, and by no means have I ever said, and you can go back and listen, you're not going to find a time where I'm like, Richard Allen is innocent, except for right now, and you could probably clip that, I guess, and that would suck, but that would be out of context. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't say that because I'm not there. I don't think, I'm not like, oh yeah, they just have the wrong guy. I'm not there. But I always say to give grace to people that don't think somebody's the right guy and that they're waiting till the trial, because there's ones where I'm like that. And also I say to give grace for the people that are adamant that Richard Allen is the right guy, because I would be the person who would be going into Idaho 4 chats and I would say, sorry guys, Brian Koberger is it. He's the one. He did this, and that's it. I would be those people. So that's why I'm like, I try to, as long as people are assholes, I don't care what you think. Because then I would go to any channel that says that Brian Koberger is innocent. I'd be like, nope, he's not either. And then I would become the person that's being attacked. So I don't want people attacked just because they think Richard Allen is the right guy. I don't care that they think that, because they very well might be right. Yeah, Brian Koberger has an insane amount of evidence against him, unlike Allen. Well, if you go to the channels, they're going to tell you law enforcement is corrupt. They planted evidence. There's 3 DNA samples that were outside of the house that are unidentified, that they only got to Koberger by using IgG illegally. I mean, I've been there. I listened to it. I won't argue because I know exactly what will happen. Nate said he had to be careful on updates during the day because of problems in Lori's case. So Lori is currently in Arizona, about to be charged with conspiracy to kill her ex-husband, Charles. Our memories do play games. I know, I hate it. I totally think it's RA, but Ellie has made mistakes. Yeah, see, I'm good with that. Because that could very well be the case too. But here's the thing is, I think that it frustrates me more if people are like, it's Richard Allen and everything the prosecutor and law enforcement has done is perfect. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't do anything wrong and that the defense is just pieces of shit. I think that's where that's the part that I struggle with more than anything. If we can look at, that's why we tell people, you can't ignore the fact that a bullet or an unspent round was found there. You can't ignore it. We have to figure it out. You can't just act like it doesn't exist or it's just not important. We have to go through it. We have to figure it out. We have to figure out how long it was there. How could it have got there? Is there really a chain of custody? You can't just ignore those things. We can't ignore that Richard Allen said he was there. We just have to figure out what time he was actually there. And, you know, when did he get there? When did he leave? Who did he actually see? We can't just say Richard Allen wasn't there, or, you know, Richard Allen was only there from 12 to 1:30, because we don't. We don't know that. Don't talk about murdering Charles. Necessary evil. I'm sorry. Not you, Charles. Not you, Charles. But, you know, I think that we have to be able to look at both sides. So if we just ignore all the stuff that the prosecutor has, I think we're doing a disservice. And if we ignore all the stuff that the defense says, then I think we're doing a disservice. Why don't we work it all out and see what comes out at the end? Why don't we discuss it, you know, dissect it, unpack it? I'd be hard-pressed to convict anyone here based on trace DNA evidence. I'm waiting for actual evidence against Koberger. Oh, gee, that was painful. See, Mags? But I love you anyway. I'm good. That doesn't change anything for me about like you as a person. Trace DNA evidence. The only yeah, we could do Koberger. I would be the channel that is just talking about all the reasons that Brian Koberger is guilty. And I feel like that becomes very redundant. And that I think it starts fights. And I think that channels that aren't open, and like I know people give like Sleuth Intuition a hard time. I know people don't like him for whatever reason. For me personally, I enjoy hanging out there, even though I know he thinks Richard Allen is involved, because he still looks at other things. He's like, okay, let's talk about that. And even if he cracks jokes about like, you know, Odinism, Schmodinism, he doesn't ever put me down for like how that I think about it. And so I like going there because I can still kind of dissect it. I struggle with channels that are just preaching to me that I'm sorry, you're wrong, and that's just stupid, and you're unreasonable, and you just must be an idiot for thinking that way. I don't want to be talked to like that, and so I don't like when people are talked to like that in my chat for thinking a different way than we do, because ultimately we just don't know. I definitely believe in hearing both sides. I'm leaning RA is innocent, but I'm open to hear it all. Same with Koberger. Yeah. That's why I'm like, all right, well, I think they got the right guy, so I'm good to go with Koberger. I don't dig into it anymore. I pay attention to court hearings. I pay attention to court filings. But I just feel like I'd just be very repetitive on here just saying, this is why he's the right guy. I don't know. Maybe I should do that. Maybe go over all the Idaho ones and you'd see like the exact opposite side of my brain. Mm-hmm. To say Brian Koberger is innocent, you have to say the state of Pennsylvania conspired with Idaho, and that's beyond far-fetched. See, but in saying that, that's exactly what people say about us. To believe that Richard Allen is innocent, you'd have to believe that ISP, FBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigations, Homeland Security, that they'd all have to be in on it. Nancy, you're a U of I alumni? Aww. I bet it is personal for you. Hey Diamond, what I just got here. Dismiss. So, like I said, I think they got the right guy with that one. Just wait till everyone finds out why the Dickey's receipt is so important in the Idaho 4 case. Yeah, I just think that one's going to be more open shut, but we'll see. And like I said, there's people who feel that way about this case. More power to them. I'm okay. BG wasn't carrying Richard Allen's firearm. Make that make sense. I have Apophis. One day you're going to come live with me and you are going to literally do, and this is what I call it. I need an EOA for dummies sometimes. So I watched your video on the guns and I'm like, okay, and you know me, I don't know a lot about guns anyway. So I'm like, okay, the end of this, like that gun is not the same gun that they're saying that he actually had there. So then there's 2 guns. And if there is 2 guns, that means that gun on the bridge that cannot be Richard Allen. And I'm like, I think I got it this time. But most of the time I go, fuck me, I have to watch that again because there's so many things that I miss. You're so intricate and so detailed that like my mind is sometimes just like, holy shit, what? I don't even know what I don't even know what just happened right now. And the whole walking backwards thing, like I can see that. Damn it, I have Apophis. Damn it. Koberger fits the profile, RA not so much. Yeah. Now this is big because he got rid of the item after the murders. The Dickeys? He got rid of the Dickeys after the murders? Probably wrapped the murder weapon up in it. We did. We found it. And it's not Tobe. It's Kim Riley. It's Kim Riley. The problem was that Kim Riley isn't actually on the screen when he talks. So here's me scrolling through looking for freaking Kim Riley. Da, 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 da. And no, he's not on the damn screen. So I just wasted all that time thinking, I'm going to do this really fast. Look at how cool I am. Look at how good I am. Yeah, no, I wasn't. It was a really bad idea. And what ultimately happens is that it happens out in the middle of nowhere.
Were found. But this task was proving to be a monumental challenge. Nonetheless, evidence that will shake this investigation to the core is hiding somewhere in the woods. Later, police reveal a shocking twist in the investigation.
And so there was a lot of leaves on the ground, and it was warm at that time, so the snow had melted and everything was wet and very, very muddy in the area at that time. So yeah, the conditions of the whole thing was not ideal, let's put it that way.
You got to remember, you had 400 or 500 people that started looking for these girls the night before. So we had to deal with that.
The crime scene encompassed a very large area, and its integrity had been violated by the pure magnitude of the search to find the missing girls.
A lot of tracks, cigarette butts, believe it or not, this kind of disgusting, but you had spit. People would urinate. I mean, because they don't have time to go back, so they go hide in the woods to go to the bathroom, that kind of stuff. So we had to deal with all that. And most people don't even think of things like that. But I mean, it was just that dramatic of a crime scene.
Early in the investigation, police find a shocking new piece of evidence. They were confronted with an arduous task.
It was in the late winter, and so there was a lot of leaves on the ground, and it was warm at that time, so the snow had melted and everything was wet and very, very muddy in the area at that time. So yeah, it
sounds like Kim Riley to me, but he's not on the screen, so I'm hearing Tobe's voice in my head. No, it's Kim. Okay. Let's see. Brian Koberger drove right up to the house and murdered 4 people in it hours after the murders. No way that's a coincidence. And they're admitting that that is his car. They're admitting that he's driving right there. Yeah, I'm not buying that somebody else did it. And then his DNA just happens to end up this guy, his DNA happens to end up on the knife sheath. I'm not there. And what never made sense to me, Necessary Evil, it's never made sense to me about the knife sheath being left behind, because when he gets back in his car and he has the knife in his hand, doesn't he go, well, shit, where the hell am I going to put this? Like, does he just toss it down and doesn't realize that he just doesn't have the sheath anymore? So, I don't know. That's where I'm at with that. I was thinking maybe I was wrong. Who knows anymore? My brain is like mush at this moment, and I'm just gonna start saying random shit. I don't know why anybody's sticking around for it. Me too. Richard Allen's, I'm me too. Aspen! Pulling the late night shifts. Yeah, we did an earlier one, and then we did a read through, and now we're just here talking shit. Talking about anything and everything. I miss you. One was found at his house like a trophy. Well, possibly. Yes, I could see that being the case. But if we're... This goes down to that whole thing about trust. And this is where I struggle. Because yes, that could absolutely be the case, that there was an unspent round kept in the keepsake box, and then there's the other unspent round that's at the crime scene with the girls. Yes, it's possible. I struggle if the defense is saying, hey, we have no chain of custody on this. If there's really no chain of custody, and I'm not saying that there isn't because we don't really know yet, but they're asking law enforcement in the depositions if there's really no chain of custody, that bullet is going to be, or that unspent round is going to be destroyed. Not to mention, it's only about the tool, see, I don't know a lot about guns, so this is going to throw me off a little bit, but the extractor or the ejector or one of those damn things that's on the back. And so I tried to watch a ton of stuff on, like on whether this tool marking is actually worth anything. And you have these experts that are like, yes, it's amazing, and we can do all these things. And then you have the other experts just like, no, that's garbage. And I'm like, this is how I foresee this trial going. We did one earlier, Aspen, on Nick McClelland's response, his post-hearing memo is what it's called. So we did that one earlier. And then Sunday night, was that just last night? Gosh, that feels like it was so long ago. Last night and tonight, a group of us read through the transcript of the motion to dismiss. So that one's a little bit more, sometimes it gets a little comical, but so that was like part 1 last night, part 2 tonight. I can't believe that was only last night. It's crazy. You wouldn't be able to go back and find it. Yeah, I'm just talking theories. I know. That's why I say I go back and forth. I think Brian Koberger was so filled with adrenaline he wasn't worried about the sheath. I think he might have cut himself too. I wonder that as well. I do wonder that as well. But I think he had gloves on, and I think his whole problem is that he didn't clean the button. He didn't clean the button of the sheath. It's just, one of those that all criminals make a mistake somewhere, somehow. It was said that she had blunt force trauma to her head. That was said way back at the beginning, and nobody really talks about that anymore. But in my working theory, I do believe that's why the family has said that Libby could have left and she didn't, because I believe that he had hurt Abby like that, and then Libby could have left because he was dealing with Abby, and that Libby didn't leave. Because otherwise, how would the families know that Libby didn't leave and that it was not Abby who didn't leave? You know what I mean? So I've always thought that. That's right. I think that part's probably true, and I think it's one of those things that might, they might have been trying to keep close so that only the perpetrator would be able to say, hey, I did this. I hit her with the gun or whatever it was. Freaking life gets in the way of true crime all the time. I thought he leads the girl standing behind them. This is Kay. That's the problem. If we don't actually have any chain of custody, I think that's what they're kind of going with. But We're not at trial yet, so we don't know that that's the case. We just know that the defense hadn't seen any photos of chain of custody, and we also know that I don't even remember who's the Holman's, Liggett's, one of their depositions, they said they'd never seen it either. I'm worried because I think AT is an excellent defense attorney. It comes out in Green's U of I book that university may have been directing the investigation. I am actually happy that AT is an excellent defense attorney because I think when he's convicted, they're not going to be able to say that he had a shitty ass attorney. If you guys haven't noticed in the chat, we're talking about multiple different cases at the same time. So good luck. Good luck understanding what the hell we're doing. What's the fund amount at? I don't know. I have not even checked today because so over the weekend there was like a technical difficulty and Hennessy had to provide information, I believe it was, to the site, but because it was over the weekend and the holiday, he wasn't going to be able to do anything until today. So they were supposed to be trying to figure that out and getting it back up. I haven't even looked to see if it is back up. So I don't have any answer on the funding. She could get a psychopathic killer off. Well, if they've got it, and it's the same thing I think about Delphi, if they've got it, they've got it. And you can have some of the best attorneys, but if they've got it, they've got it. And I think, as long as the prosecutor doesn't make mistakes, well, so not to throw in more cases or anything, but if you go to O.J. Simpson, there was a lot of mistakes that were made in the investigation and O.J. walks. If you go to Casey Anthony, in my opinion, they just didn't have it. They couldn't tie it all together. They couldn't put the 2 and 2 together. And so he created enough reasonable doubt for the jury because they couldn't tie her to actually being the person who did it. And then second, this is always a big thing in trials. If you have these experts, the experts have to be likable and understandable. If they're not likable and they're not understandable, then that's going to be a problem because the jury's going to get lost. And I think if the prosecutor in Casey Anthony's case, if they had the bug person, what do you call him? I can't even think of the word right now. The homologist. Why can't I think of that name? The bug guy. If they had one that actually understood a jury and how to speak to them and teach them in layman's terms, I think they would have won. That's my thought on that. T is live again. Well, I'm done. I've been back on for 3 hours. And why can't I think of that snappy dragon? Why can't I say it? Entomologist. Art of Deduction's channel was actually taken down today by YouTube. I did hear that he put up another channel. I have not gone to it to see yet, though, if that's fact. But YouTube took it down. It was terminated. You want to start talking Diddy? Oh, God, I've been down that rabbit hole now for days. Days. I don't want to go to rehab. No. Yeah, see, this is, you can tell, it's I've been doing this too long today. I could never be one of those YouTubers who does all-day streams. I'd fucking lose it. And I would just be a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs person on here just talking about random-ass shit. Yeah, they did a shitty job. Alley Cat, hi, honey. Because I love bugs too. I love snakes, bearded dragons, and tarantulas. I got them. That's like Kate Does Crime. She likes all that stuff. Diddy did it. Diddy do it. Diddy did it. Diddy's in for it. That's for sure. Something wrong with true crime community when 3/4 of the creators believe a guy that admits he's on parole for fraud and spend a decade in prison and news networks calling him out. Hold on, Mike. What case did you go to? Where'd you go? I know we got all kinds of them going on. Hold on, let me think. 3/4 of the believe a guy that admits he's on parole for fraud and spent a decade in prison. Poor Biggie. I've researched Diddy since Tupac, but I did not know all of the. I did not know the creepiness of these after hours parties and these side houses and shit like that. I didn't know all of that, but I did a ton when it came to like Tupac and Biggie's murders. I just didn't know the weird sex stuff. I didn't know any of that. If that's even true, I don't know. Casey has 6 searches in her Safari history. Yeah. I should probably put a disclaimer on, like, the end of this live is just jibber jabber on anything and everything. And personal to the defendant in the case, not a generalist. If I know my stats, I can convince a ladybug it's a bumblebee using simple math plus a personal story all about ladybees. Exactly. Exactly. Can anybody just tell me, are they standing like in a field of wheat? It's just, no, just joking. It's sad because she's still banking it. Yeah, I haven't dove into that case yet about burying bodies. Diddler on the roof. Casey has, yeah, okay. All right, I think we're caught up. I'm gonna wrap it up because, like I said, I'm just talking gibberish now. I should see you guys tomorrow. I don't think I have anything on the agenda that should stop me from coming on, but, you know, don't ever hold me to it because you never know. 3 kids on spring break, shit happens. But thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for enjoying the transcript read through last night and tonight. And thank you to the people who came on and helped me, to Carla, to Sleuthy, to CJ. Let's see if we got CJ. We got to 1,000 yet. Getting closer. 55. He needs 55 more and he'll hit 1,000. I'll drop it one more time. One more time. I'm gonna celebrate. Weeds are the new wheat. Everything is wheat now. It's all wheat. All right. Love you all. I appreciate each and every one of you. Get this outro ready to go and change my picture because that's not, I don't want that tomorrow. And if you guys missed the live earlier today, I did say that we were gonna try to figure out about the contempt motion transcripts, but she's on vacation until April 8th, and I just don't know if it's gonna be worth it to get it at that point. So we'll make a decision together closer to April 8th if we believe it's still necessary and needs to be read through. If she's already ruled on it and not much is happening with it and they're not taking it back to, you know, they're not doing anything with it on the outside of the case, I don't know if it'll even be necessary to have. So we'll wait and see on that one. But other than that, guys, go enjoy the rest of your Monday, or now probably Tuesday for most of you. I just started playing that and wasn't even done talking. See what I do? So go enjoy the rest of your Monday. It might even be Tuesday for you. Enjoy your Tuesday. I will see you guys later. Thank you.
Do you dare to follow me down? Head into the unknown. Down the rabbit hole. headed into the unknown.